our Dr. Beena Philip, the Mayor of Kozhikode. I also welcome the eminent speakers for the day, Professor Graham Hitchen, Director of the Loughborough University of Policy Unit, a senior member of the London School. Graham leads the work of the policy unit, promoting policy engagement and impact across the university. He is also the co-director of Creative Research and Innovation Centre at Loughborough, London. Until recently, he worked with the industrial strategy team at UKRI, leading evaluation and strategy for the audience of the future and creative industries clusters program. We welcome you, sir. I also welcome the next speaker of the day, Professor Joy Sen. Professor Joy Sen is the professor and former head of Department of Architecture and Regional Planning at IIT Kharagpur. He's authored 7 books and several articles on Indian heritage and iconographic documentation, as well as a textbook on sustainable planning in India. He's been involved in multiple international projects, many in collaboration with local and international governments, United Nations organizations, and universities in the United States and the United Kingdom. It's also my honor to welcome the discussants of the day, Shri Satish Namboodiripad, IAS, Director General of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. We also welcome Dr. Shibu Raman, Senior Lecturer at Architecture and Urbanism at Cardiff University, UK, along with Dr. Ajit Kaliyat, Urban Jet Professor at Kerala Institute of Local Administration. And I also welcome the moderator of the day, Dr. Mohammad Firoz, Head of Department of Architecture and Planning at NIT Calicut. And I welcome the members of the audience and all the attendees from the various parts of the world. I welcome you all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Salilkumar, for the warm welcome. Before we start, I request you all to remain muted throughout the event and unmute only during the Q&A session. Thank you for your cooperation. And I believe Dr. Beena Philip was there in the meeting. Next, I request the Honorable Mayor of Kozhikode Corporation, Dr. Beena Philip, to kindly address the audience and chair today's session. So over to Dr. Beena Philip.
I'm so happy to join this Kerala Urban Dialogue, the 11th series. And Professor Graham Hitchen is there, eagerly waiting for your speech to know a lot about, urban governance and also creativity of industries, and especially in the context of India. And Professor Joy Sen, Sri Satish Namboodiripad, Dr. Shibu Raman, Dr. Ajit, and Dr. Firoz, and I suppose the faculty and students who have been eagerly waiting to learn a little bit from this urban dialogue, and to apply that when they come into the positions where governance, where they have to integrate an institution and move forward. And my dear friends, as you all know, that with the selection of Kozhikode as one of the creative cities of UNESCO, we are really happy to associate our relationship with those events or discussions or institutions which are thinking loudly about the urban development in a new light. Bureaucracy and governance, and of course economy, they are all interrelated in one way or the other. On top is the governance. When we think of creative governance, with that starts the rest of the things. If the governance doesn't allow the private parties to involve in the development of a city, these days it will be difficult to move forward with the planning and the economic support of the government institutions alone. So that's one part. Another is, it's a closed system, like the governance or the bureaucracy. It is really closed society, if we can say that in terms of some of the economists and the revolutionaries who made the society think aloud about their moving forward. And in that closed system, we ask them to open up. It has to be an open discussion and openness where more new things, advanced practices should enter into that society of governance or bureaucracy. For that, I think when we discuss whatever topic you all have planned to discuss here, I, as a mayor of a city of Kozhikode, will benefit a lot. That's why I am here to attend this program. And moreover, our national institution like NIT, and especially the architecture department, which has been selected as the center of Kerala. The government of Kerala has a new urban dialogue policy, where, as we said earlier, the governance have started thinking about the advancement, or rather to accept the new theories and concepts which are in practice in different parts of the world into the Nava Keralam projects, which we have already planned. So that way also, this discussion helps us a lot, those who are from Kerala and who get a chance to discuss all these things that we discuss right here when we gather together in another body where we discuss, or where we get a chance to represent ourselves as the people who have attended different, or rather listened to different people with the different concepts of urban development. And I think with these words, I'll be more eager to listen to your words. So thank you once again, Mr. Dr. Ajit and Dr. Firoz, for inviting me into this program. And that's all, my dear friends. We'll discuss later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Beena Philip, for stressing upon the importance of creative economy and its importance in today's scenario. And it's crucial to mention that she was the driving force behind UNESCO's recommendation for Kozhikode to be recognized with the creative city literature. So with that, we are moving on to our keynote address. We have two prominent speakers who have graciously agreed to join us online today. We'll start the session with Professor Graham Hitchen, Director of the Policy Unit, Loughborough University, and Senior Member of the London School. A brief profile about him: Graham leads a policy unit of Loughborough University, promoting policy engagement and impact across the university. He is also the co-director of the Creative Research and Innovation Centre at Loughborough, London. He has led research projects on creative technology, data and policy, and the creative industries in India, bringing a wealth of experience in several social policy areas. Graham was the corporate policy director of Art Council England and has also been running a successful consultancy business since 2007, which advises government agencies, cities, and universities. He will be giving his insights on creative industries in India, a cultural and industrial reframing. I request Professor Graham to take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be invited to speak today. I'm going to start by sharing a screen. If I do that before I begin. So you should be able to see the full screen that I'm going to talk about. So thank you again for inviting me to speak today. I'm very honored to be speaking to all of you. You've had a bit of biographical information about me. What I failed to put in my biography, I realized, that I've sent and indeed was on our website, is the reference to the work I've done in an urban setting. So as you've heard, I'm a professor at Loughborough University, but I happen to be at Loughborough University in London. It has a London campus, and I've got a considerable amount of experience of working in the cultural and creative sector in London. I worked with the Mayor of London some years ago. I was part of the cultural strategy team, and then subsequently set up a creative industries unit for the Mayor in London. And there's been a great deal of work done that's been spearheaded from London, including the creation of a World Cities Culture Forum, which exists, which I think Bangalore, I think, is a member of. But they talked to me recently about the extent to which they want to build links in India. So I really welcome this opportunity to speak to the esteemed group that's here today. So let me begin by taking you through some of what I'm going to talk about. So in particular, I'm going to focus my presentation around some of the findings of a major mapping project that I undertook with colleagues in 2022. This was a 6-month project that was funded by UK Research and Innovation, which is the main body for supporting research and development in the UK. And it was UKRI India, which was the main sponsor and partner, together with the Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK and the British Council India office. So this was a collaboration that was brought together by different bits of the UK government that were working with colleagues in India to try and understand the what was happening to the creative industries in India. So the creative industries, which has been established for some 20 years now in the UK, is a really important and significant part of the economy and a really important and significant part of cultural development in cities and regions across the UK. There was a sense that it was important to the UK, but to India rather, but no knowledge really or understanding of the scale of the creative industries in India. And so I was invited to pull a team together, and I pulled together quite a cross-disciplinary team with colleagues from the University of Glasgow in the UK, but also Jindal University in India, to undertake a 6-month mapping project. I noticed there's a hand up. If it's okay, I'll keep progressing unless there are any technical difficulties or people can't see my deck or anything of that kind. Otherwise, I'll proceed and happy to take questions at the end, if that's okay. So just to say a little bit about the mapping project. So this was the brief. This was the brief to capture a comprehensive overview of the creative industries sector in India, the research and innovation ecosystem, and the policy frameworks. And it was a very, very large brief. So it was a data project to actually understand what the creative industries are in India, the scale, the interactions that they have, but also to try and understand the research and innovation ecosystem around that and underpinning that, as well as the policy frameworks. And it was actually one of our early interviews said to us, you know, you've got a big job on your hand. This is a very big job. And it was a 6-month contract and there's only so much we can do. So what I want to say is that the scale and diversity and complexity, which was one of the key insights of the creative industries in India, we've really only touched the surface of. And I fully appreciate that some of what I'm about to outline is very much a superficial or relatively superficial overview of some of the challenges as well as the opportunities facing the sector in India. The work we undertook was pretty extensive, however, in that 6-month period, and we did a considerable amount of review of data and intelligence gathering, bringing together documents from a range of different sources, informal, formal and informal, so various published and unpublished papers. And we undertook a number of expert interviews with senior policy and industry people in India, and convened 2 roundtable discussions, including an in-person session that we ran in Delhi in 2022. And let me talk you through some of the nature of the work that we undertook. So in the UK, we have 9 subsectors that have been agreed or acknowledged as a really important and established part of the creative industries. The UK government collects data regularly on these 9 sectors. And there are sectoral bodies, industry bodies that represent these 9 sectors that generate returns and data and information. And this has taken some 15 to 20 years to establish and to have an established definition and set of subsectors that's recognized by the Treasury, our finance department. And what we felt what we wanted to do, albeit that some of in India, there aren't necessarily these established sectors or the established definition. We wanted to use that UK definition as a guide, as a framework for undertaking our work. And we found that it was very difficult. These were the questions that we asked of each sectors. And the difficulty is that actually getting access to data. And our sense was that the state of as it were, around definitions and understanding was not dissimilar to where the UK was in terms of data collection 20 years ago. Data collection in the creative industries in the UK 20 years ago was piecemeal. Knowledge of and data on some of these sectors was very uneven. And that was the case we found in India. We managed to get very good and robust data on some of these sectors, but not others. We managed to get strong and robust insights on innovation activity in some sectors, not others. But what we did, we stuck to our brief and looked comprehensively and built that data together. So I wanted to show you, just the first image I'm going to show you is what some of the formal data told us about the scale of the sectors. So these are the 9 sectors plotted, not entirely to scale, but pretty much as close as we could get for looking at the size of the sectors. And if I start on the right-hand side with film, TV, video, radio, and photography, you won't be surprised to know that that is one of the more significant sectors in India in terms of scale, in terms of turnover, in terms of employment, and in terms of R&D activity. It's dwarfed, of course, by IT and software. In the UK, that IT and software definition, and the one that we used here, includes games. And in the UK, that's a growing part of the IT and software sector. In India, equally, it's growing, but of course, that's dwarfed by the IT sector, which is just so significant in India. But we were struck by the size of the publishing and the advertising and marketing sectors as well. Although small compared to IT and software, they're nonetheless really quite significant sectors, and also quite significant, certainly publishing, when it comes to international trade. But moving over to the left-hand side, and I'll say a little bit more about this later in my presentation, that what we found was that there was limited data, and despite the fact that sectors like performing arts, crafts, and so on have such a significant cultural presence in India, in terms of numbers, in terms of actual size of the sector that was formally collected and available, data that was available, they were relatively small. Now, the biggest orange dot that you can see to the left under the word crafts is formally, according to official data, the size of the craft sector. So smaller than publishing, for example, smaller than performing arts. The big brown dot behind it that goes off the page is actually our guesstimate of what we think is the size of the craft sector, because there was just no data on what we knew anecdotally to be such a massive and important sector within the country. So a few things to take away from this, and we'll come back to this, is that really significant large sectors that are having a big impact on the Indian economy, that are well recognized and are actually quite important national and international powerhouses for the creative and cultural sector. And to the left, if you like, an anecdotal sense, a very strong sense that we picked up about the dynamic set of sectors around craft, design, architecture, in that space in particular. But actually, it's not really seen that actually the official data suggests that these are sectors that are much smaller and much less dynamic than what we picked up from our interviews and our conversations from people. So I will come back to some of those in a moment. Let me just now talk about the policy context. You'll know that government in India is complex. Multiple different government departments with multiple different types of activity. Don't worry if you can't read everything on the screen. The main purpose of showing this image was to show that, well, this shows two things to me, really. One is that there's a range of different departments and a range of different sub-departments within government departments that have some responsibility for or take a lead in supporting creative industries activity. But the second thing that it shows me that it's scattered across a number of different departments, and there is no single department that's taking a leadership role. And that, again, are not dissimilar to, let's say, the UK 20, 30 years ago, in that we had very, very unjoined up government. There was no strong, which there is now, a Department for Culture, Media and Sport that takes the lead on the cultural and creative industry sector in the UK. Instead, there are multiple departments doing multiple different disconnected things. And that was the one message, is that there is an emerging engagement. And in fact, a very positive spin on this story is that there are a large number of quite small interventions, which our mapping showed are really having quite a significant and important impact on the sector and are supporting the development of the sector. But those interventions aren't really joined up and they're disconnected. And clearly there is a real opportunity there at a national level to have a better sense of coordination and indeed leadership. And there's some messages there for that regional message. Is that the other insight that we picked up was that a lot of the developments that are driving creative industries growth in India are actually happening at the state level and at that regional level. So we felt there are real opportunities for that sort of bottom up, if I can put it, a drive. And that's particularly the case we've seen in AVGC, which I'll say a bit about in a moment, but where it's some of the states, particularly the southern states, that have been driving development in a more joined up way than at a national level. And actually there are real opportunities, I think, for cities and states to take a leadership role to develop policies, and that they might be translated into a sort of central government program of work. Our focus was on the national. So we looked at those national initiatives, and we identified there have been a series of interventions over the last few years that have started to have an impact. And these are examples of things which, as I said a moment ago, might appear to not be joined up, but that are having quite a significant impact on the development of key aspects of the creative industries and key subsectors, which are having both an important economic impact as well as a social impact in providing a sort of strengthening the particular sectors and strengthening sectors in particular regions. And the last one is AVGC, which is, in our view, the most significant growth opportunity in India, which is being driven from the state level. So animation, visual effects, games, and comics. That's what AVGC stands for. I have to tell my colleagues in the UK that's what it stands for. And what we were really struck by was the extent to which there was really the beginning of a very, very joined up program of work around AVGC, which was being trailblazed by the southern states, in particular Telangana, but also other states as well. And that's been adopted, as many of you will know, has been adopted by the national government and is now an important part of what is a national policy. And I think it's a great example of that coming together, that blending together of something that's being driven at a city and a state level that then can plug into what's happening at a national level and can have a really significant impact for the sector industrially, economically, nationally, and indeed internationally. So coming back to this image, I want to, I'll say that, in a sense, that was the top line. We then did a number of, I won't say any more about the research we undertook, but we did 3 deep dives. We did a deep dive into AVGC because we acknowledged that was where there was a real opportunity. And that was one of the key messages I wanted to share today, the importance of AVGC as a sector. The other deep dive, we looked at Telangana and Hyderabad as a limited deep dive, but a look at some of those state-led policies and what was happening there, which was helped us to build that recommendation about the opportunity of a sort of state-driven approach to the development of national policies. The other deep dive that we did was to try and build some understanding of this phenomenon that was happening around crafts and design, and the fact that actually it couldn't be seen. And as you'll see in a moment, there's a certain irony in that, in a sense, we failed to find out very much about what was happening, but we recognized there was real opportunity there. There was a significant cultural value as well as economic value, and indeed a significant environmental value that could be generated out of if there was an opportunity to build a much more sort of joined up approach and a more coordinated approach to support for crafts, design, and other similar sectors at that level, which I'll say a bit more about in a moment. So looking at AVGC for a moment, and I've just got a couple of slides left to give people advance warning if you have questions and so on. So I want to say a little bit about AVGC. Again, for those that aren't aware, animation, visual effects, games, and comics. Now, from a UK perspective, our sense is, and if I take that third bullet point there, that this is actually a coherent creative technologies strategy and program that's beginning to emerge in India. And we've taken this message back to colleagues in the UK and said very clearly, in the UK over the last couple of years, there is a a shorthand that's being used by a number of colleagues at a policy level and industrial level called Createch, which is sort of riffs off this notion of fintech or health tech, that there is this sector called Createch. But when we dig down the surface and say, well, what are you describing here? My colleagues in the UK can't actually say which sectors they're referring to or what this phenomenon is. Conversely, and by contrast, that in India, there is real clarity. There is real clarity that this is about a set of subsectors that build on the massive strengths that India have built over the last 20 years in IT and software. There's a focus on animation and visual effects, but that is having an impact certainly in film and TV, but also into games, and which draws on the tradition, the heritage tradition, and the graphic novel and the comics tradition. And so this extraordinary blending together, which is there, as it says on the tin, of A, V, G, and C, which is a coming together, which is a really important phenomenon. And it is growing into, we felt, and it's a message back to, in a certain sense, to colleagues in India of we think there's a real power and opportunity here. But it's a message that I've taken back to your colleagues in the UK about an opportunity that we need to learn from what India has been doing here, that state-driven approach, and how we could adopt that. So in our recommendations back to UKRI and to UK government, we recommended that we look to build some collaborations with the fast-growing hubs of creative technology, not least in the south, and that we've recommended that. And we've pointed out, as indeed India itself has acknowledged, that this clarity around AVGC that we don't have in the UK has been extended into XR, so into extended reality, so immersive reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on, that includes esports as well. And again, I keep saying it, but it's an important point, that our sense was that there's a maturity about the policies that are being developed in India that we just don't have in the UK. And so there was a recommendation back to the UK that in policy terms, we need to link up and we need to learn and look at how we can explore collaborations. And indeed, at Loughborough in London, we've started to do that with colleagues in Hyderabad to look at the scope for developing a partnership. And we've said that we want to bring other cities into that partnership. And clearly opportunities for international trade in terms of some of the companies that we know in London and elsewhere that could link up with companies in India. But we're very interested in the idea of research and innovation collaboration as Loughborough University, and we're talking to other universities in the UK about that, and would be very keen to explore that notion in India. In terms of that hidden value, that hidden economy, and this is where, if you remember, the title of my talk was about industrial and cultural reframing, and this is where we think there's a scope for a cultural reframing. This is being driven from, you know, the extraordinary craft traditions in India that are rooted in communities, often rural communities, and the multiple cultures and languages that it draws from, that creates this extraordinary rich tapestry of creative activity that manifests itself through fashion, through garments, through products, and different aspects of crafts design, and also into architecture and other aspects of design as well. And as I said earlier, we had identified this as a deep dive that we wanted to look at. And we struggled to actually get data, but we identified 2 or 3 things that we wanted to highlight. One, given that part of the purpose of my report was to report back to the UK government, we actually said that what's not really being recognised is the extent to which, let's say, the fashion brands, the high-profile fashion brands that generate wealth in the UK and indeed other bits of the Northern Hemisphere and the Western world, that those, but also have a massive environmental impact, those fashion brands, by driving sort of fast fashion and throwaway culture, that actually they draw on the cultures and traditions from India, and there are strong links into the textile sector in India. And one of our messages back was that we need to think about how we can engage with and collaborate with the crafts traditions in India to build collaboration that understands, yes, there are risks around IP, And there are certainly risks around exploiting crafts communities in India. But conversely, there were some really interesting developments that have been supported again at a state level as well as a national level around geographical identification that we felt in the UK we could learn from, and that there was real scope to do so. But ultimately, and I've talked about formal and informal, this was really the point about the lack of formal data. But ultimately, the main recommendation that we made back to our colleagues in the UK and that I would share with you is that the real challenge in many ways of facilitating collaboration between the UK and India is that we don't know enough about the sector. There is just not enough official data. And I think there's a real opportunity therefore at a city level and a state level to take that on board in terms of, if you want to be able to develop policies and foster collaboration and including international collaboration, then actually having a better sense of the scale of the sector is really important. And I think that really will assist in the development of new schemes, new programs that might support what we think of as important sectors that, just to make the point again, could have a big economic impact, yes, but actually draw on the cultural and really reinforce the sort of cultural and heritage identity of India and of the many different parts of India, but also the environmental opportunities to work with the UK, with the fashion industry, for example, in Italy, in France, in the United States, to help us understand better how we could build more sustainable value chains that can support a more sustainable crafts and fashion economy. So let me just summarize very briefly what I've been saying, the work that I did, and what we've been doing, and some of the work that we're now taking away as Loughborough University London and the Creative Research and Innovation Centre that I'm co-director of in London. So first was that it's just, and I might be saying it to people, this, but the sheer scale and the complexity of the sector in India is something that we wanted to communicate to colleagues in the UK. I think that's been realised over the last year or two. The suggestion that the creative industries might form a part of the trade agreement between UK and India, I think, is being acknowledged. And there's just opportunity both within India and in terms of international collaboration, particularly around what I'm now calling creative technologies rather than createch, which is a throwaway term, but building a more coherent and intelligent approach to creative technologies in the UK that we could learn from India, and we could collaborate to build a real powerhouse and build on what India is a powerhouse. I've talked a lot about the hidden cultural, economic and environmental value in crafts and fashion, so I won't reiterate that. But I will finish, that's my last bullet point, really, with, there is massive opportunity for UK-India collaboration. I'm grateful again for the time that you've allocated to me this afternoon. I really appreciate being invited into this forum, and I really welcome the opportunity to collaborate with you and to work with you in the future. This QR code will take you to the Mapping Creative Industries report that I referred to. And I just want to finish by thanking you again for inviting me to speak today, and I look forward to ongoing collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Graham. It was insightful to learn about creative industries mapping, government and policy context in India, and the opportunity that lie ahead for us. Thank you so much. Now the floor is open for questions. So please unmute and you may. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Please, sir.
Yeah. So I was really amazed and very happy with the presentation by Professor Graham Hitchen. And I think in my subsequent presentation, I'll have a few things to complement. So what I really liked in the presentation is about the grains, the little bits and pieces, which has all been a part of the mapping. And perhaps just a question. The question is, in this process of setting up the council which you had, and the growing realization and the increasing tie between the United Kingdom and India, what do you like to offer us as one or two take homes, the need of the day to transform our planning policies?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments on my presentation. So as far as planning policies go, we didn't look at planning in India in any depth at all, but I can happily share some knowledge based on my work in the UK about the importance of planning. I think the planning is particularly important when it comes to things like workspace development and the support of smaller companies. So the MSMEs, the micro and small medium enterprises, but I'm thinking particularly of the micro and the small enterprises that need access to space, to collaborate, to learn from each other. That's a really important part of the opportunity that planning allows for that, so that there could be what we in the UK call creative zones. We have something in London that the Mayor of London has developed, which has been extraordinarily successful, actually, which might be worth looking at, which is the Mayor designated, our Mayor Sadiq Khan, creative enterprise zones. So, and he invited local authorities in London to bid, and just to be clear, it wasn't local authorities that were bidding, it was authorities that bid to designate part of their local area, and in some cases areas that were across 2 or 3 different on the borders of different local authorities, and they needed to demonstrate the potential for growth and the risks to the ongoing growth. And what the creative enterprise zones have done is as it were given mayoral-led designation to parts of the city where there are certain planning rules that apply, that mean that, for example, if there's a big housing development that's being undertaken or a big retail development, then it needs to go to the, there will be certain criteria written into that about the importance of allocating space for creative businesses, or if in the case of retail, it may be for shops, creative shops and so on, or galleries or other spaces for that sort of retail experience. But so that would need to be built into a planning application. But second, that the planning application would need, or certain planning applications would need to go to the mayor's office for approval. Now that's not intended to restrict activity. It's not intended as an over-bureaucratization of a system. On the contrary, it was about trying to direct and encourage. And the Creative Enterprise Zone model has been very successful in the sense that what it's done is that it's encouraged local authorities to think about how they can deploy and support and invest in creative enterprise and develop strategies that are about land use and planning, but complemented by other incentives that they can bring in to support those activities. So planning is an important part of that, but the point is that, as I said, that planning complements other strategies, and it crosses, and they cross over, those strategies need to cross over municipal boundaries, so that there needs to be some recognition of the potential for growth and what the barriers are to growth. And it's about creating channels, if you like, channels for development, for growth. So I'd recommend looking at creative enterprise zones. There are other examples in the UK, but that certainly in London has been very sensible and very useful. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. Yeah. Can I ask just one more thing, if I'm allowed to?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. So, sir, I just met your mayor from Bristol, Mr. George Ferguson. He was in Hyderabad last week, and I found Bristol to be like a hub of creative industries and resurgence. I mean, and yeah, that was very interesting meeting Mr. George Ferguson there. And he gave us examples of how small associations, NGOs and CBOs within and around Bristol is taking an increasing lead in creating these channels, as you just said. Anything, if you have to
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, simply to say that Bristol has been a trailblazer. Some great examples of activity. It's the home to a large number of R&D units of companies, albeit that it's a relatively small city. We're talking probably fewer than 1 million people in Bristol. So, you know, very, very small in Indian terms and relatively small even in UK terms. And its proximity to the UK, its proximity to London. It's a couple of hours away from London, and it's only an hour away, less than an hour from Cardiff, the capital of Wales. So it's very well located. But it has invested very wisely in the creative industries over the last few years, including into creative technologies. So I would suggest that is a fruitful collaboration and a partnership. And the creative centre in Bristol called My World, which is a major investment into creative technologies, is one of the partners in the development that we would be very interested in London to collaborate with Hyderabad as well. So yeah, happy to pick that up separately. I saw another hand go up. I'm not coordinating this, but I saw another hand, so I don't want to stop other people coming forward.
Can I just intervene? I'm Satish from Budripatya. Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please. Thank you very much. It is this is to in response to what Professor Hitchen was mentioning about the lack of clarity on the AVGC side in UK, and or rather the existence of this kind of a clarity in India. I just wanted to corroborate on that matter. Government of India. I work for the Government of India, by the way. I mean, Government of India is coming out with a major summit, World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit 2024 in November, as part of the International Film Festival in Goa. This is going to be for 2 days. It's a very, very elaborate agenda, and it says that to position India as a world capital in this as a platform for provoking ideas and to fuel conversations, and also to drive the creative economy by positioning India as a premier hub for creating the intellectual properties, and also to presenting India to the world as a media and entertainment industry. Just wanted to make this kind of a mention, and there is a lot of, as he was mentioning, there's a lot of clarity or a lot of forward action on behalf of the Government of India. It is at the highest level with the Prime Minister, Ministry of Information Broadcasting, Ministry of IT. That is information technology, and a lot of, I'm sure that you would have heard about the FICCI frame and the institutions like that, events like that. It's in continuation with that. It is going to be a very, very major event to be held in November 20 to 22nd in Goa. So I just wanted to bring it to your notice in the sense that the clarity and couple of was just going through your report, Professor. Couple of states which already have this kind of a policy. Probably Kerala, I don't think has this kind of a policy. Most of the states to come out with Telangana, Hyderabad, Karnataka, etc. You were mentioning on those points and policy, etc. So this is, of course, going to be a very, very major area when, the state and various states, or even for that matter, India as a country, is going to take up creative industries in a major way. And, I just wanted to bring it to your notice. That's all. It was less of a question, but more of an intervention. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. That's very good. And I think, as you say, I see that as a further development of what's already being undertaken. And but it is worth just a very quick observation, just because I think part of the messaging for me is to take it back to the UK. I spoke recently to a leading independent a consultancy in the UK that specialises in film and TV and specialises in research internationally. And I asked them to list the territories that they undertake research and where they have strong links. And India wasn't on that list. And it's an example of where there's a certain naivety or lack of information or ignorance ultimately in the UK. So, I'm taking that message to my colleagues in the UK, and I think there is real opportunity, and I really welcome, what's happening. I think it is very positive, and there are real opportunities. And you mentioned FICCI. I've completely failed to mention FICCI in my presentation. We work very closely with FICCI and the AVGC group chaired by Ashish SK. And so FICCI was a really important partner for us in the development of our work.
I'll share those waves related papers, documents, etc. to you separately, Professor. Okay, I'm sure that you'll be interested. Thank you. Hello.
Any more questions from the audience? Okay, in that case, once again, thank you, Professor Graham, for your insights and for agreeing to the session. We understand that you have a busy schedule, and if you want to discontinue the session, we respect that. However, we would appreciate if you could continue. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, and good luck with the rest of your session today. Thank you.
Yes, with that, we are quickly moving to our next speaker, Professor Joyson, Professor and former Head Department of Architecture and Planning, IIT Kharagpur. Sen has authored 7 books and several articles on Indian heritage and iconographic documentation, as well as textbook on sustainable planning in India. He has been involved in multiple international projects, many in collaboration with local and international governments, United Nations Organization, and universities in the United States and the UK. His area of research include community and regional planning analysis and programming, and architecture and planning related heritage studies and documentation. He'll be sharing his perspectives on creative city regions and their economy, a deeper way of inclusive development in India. Over to Professor Jason. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nambiar. Thank you, the entire fraternity, the learned gathering here. At the outset, I'll just share a small presentation since we are online. So I hope the presentation is visible, and I'm just going full screen. Kindly confirm that it's visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, thank you so much. So first, a heartiest congratulations to the city of Kozhikode and to the government of Kerala and the government of India as a whole to take up this very important topic. A very personal thank to the organizers at NIT Calicut and to Mayor Madam and everyone else in this gathering. I think this is the need of the hour because I have realized it in my little life, both as a professional and also as a professor and in academia, that this is an area which is not only picking up, but very soon perhaps is going to take the central stage. Creative economies and creative cities are synonymous. One represents the economic forces, the other represents the spaces. And what is important today that there is a marriage between the two. So what has happened in the last, say, 200 years, that we have lived a world of technological predominance. And since the days of industrial revolution, the technological change has been super, and it has been huge and paramount. So we have largely moved from a thermal mechanical system to an electromechanical system. And recently we are going through a sea change that involves the information technology and the bioinformatics-driven industries of the world. So that is the one hand. But what is happening right now, there is also a creative resurgence, which people like us, the ordinary people, the academic people, the industrial people are slowly beginning to realize. And that is taking up a big seat for several reasons. Because the global economy, the national economy, the continental economy is at stake. It's like a bird moving with both the wings. If an industry moves with just big economies, big industries, big investments, the paradigm is only half, is short-sighted. So we need the other side, which Professor Graham Hitchin just said. We need the micro, small, and medium, the microfinancing, the micro-organization, the cottage state industries, the farm state industries, the village state industries, the regional state industries. So we need a marriage between the cities and their regions, and there it becomes inclusive. So inclusive growth and development becomes a synonymous word, which is the same form, that is creative economies and the role of creative cities. I'll take you to the next slide, which is a very interesting slide because it was a turning point in my life. In 2005, at the ISOCOP Congress in Bilbao, Spain, I met this man, Charles Landry. And he's one of the fathers of creative industries. Some of the best books have come from his hand. and the contradictions, the drift or the conflict between the formal and the informal is to be reduced to a balance, which he says a balance between chaos and order. We are mostly used to order, but we think the other side is chaotic. It's not very organized. That notion has to change. Yeah, the neighborhoods vibrating with energy is as much as important like the little corners and the parks. The middle class section of a society is as much as important as the small is beautiful. A little lesser people coming from the region or the villages or the creative crafts center. And technology centers for innovation has to be incorporating the social facilities for the older people. My own scholar, Dipanjan, had met Dr. Dipanjan Saha. He's a faculty at NIT Rourkela right now. Met Charles again, this was the year 2022. And he was so happy that we had about 2 generations of meeting with him. Because when I met Charles in 2005, my ideas about planning had changed to a very large extent. I had some conviction about a term which I never thought will be termed as creative economy, but I knew them as small economies, unrecognized economies, informal economies. But the word creative had never struck me. And then I looked back into my own paradigm and looked at great personalities like Gandhiji, Tagore, Madan Mohan Malviya ji, and many others. And then I looked back up into our Indian history, into the depths of our Indian ethos and traditions. And then I found out for India, the term creative economy and creative industries exist for thousands of years. Because our regions, our Mahajanapadas, the distributions of work, folk, and place, in the words of Patrick Geddes, is synonymous with Indian culture, folk, and economic tradition for thousands and thousands of years. Our ships have been harboring the entire Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean Sea, even a few thousand years prior to Emperor Alexander. And today all the proofs are coming out. So this is something which is like a revival or a resurgence or a repositioning of something that we already had in this country. And as and Dr. Namboodiripad just said in the comment, India can surely take up a huge lead in this recognition of creative industries, because it is a lifeline and a spirit that coexist with the lifeline of India or Bharat itself. So there is one very important word that needs to be looked into. That is a work by an economist, which is Kuznets. So Kuznets, Simon Kuznets, Professor Simon Kuznets, worked in the 50s and the 60s on the countries which were prospering as industrial countries. Most of Europe, of course, the United States, and Japan to be picking up as the second largest economy in another 2 or 3 decades. And then he found out a very interesting correlationship, a negative correlationship between industrial development and pollution, the environmental degradation. And then he said, it is a matter of time that these countries which are polluting the world right now with red technology are going to change and transform their attitude towards industrialization, and they're going to become orange and eventually green. And the curve is going to be inverted and new. And the hope, the silver line, the opportunity that's hidden in this inverted U-curve, which was an economic U-curve, was actually transformed by the environmentalists like Al Gore and others into an environmental U-curve, which says, even though the global north is picking up on the better technology and transforming their non-polluting industries and becoming diverse and more green, the same thing will slowly happen to the global south and the developing to the underdeveloped countries. So the final situation is an inverted U. But what's the mystery in this? The mystery is that there's an increasing paradigm of industrial development, an increasing change in the notion of industrial development, which is not an either or. It is not an either or between a large industry and something that we have neglected so far, but it's an inclusion of the smaller and the lesser and the little and the neglected in the mainstream of industries. That's what Professor Graham Hitchen was saying. All the industries. I'm going to give you some live examples of the work that we have done from IIT Kharagpur as a professional architect and planner. So Kuznets, who got his Nobel Prize in 1971, gave us a transformational paradigm of including a transformative potential of how we look at industries. And what is our definition of the total ambit of industries? From where to where, and from what to what. So that's why this slide is extremely important. It's very important. So with this background, let's move on. So about in the pre-COVID years, we got this project in Kolkata from the Ministry of Culture to redesign the town hall. Every city has a town hall. And Kolkata is just not a city, but it's a cultural city. It had been the cultural city and the hub of British capitalism prior to 1947. And the city became very famous for various reasons. One reason was when Dominic Lapierre wrote this book, The City of Joy, where Patrick Schweiz and others had acted in this. So when the town hall project was given to us, we took a slightly larger paradigm, and we wanted to tell to the mayor and council of the city and others, we are just not going to put datas and pictures and things, but we're going to put a deeper look and a deeper probe of what Kolkata, Bengal, Eastern India as a whole has contributed to the economy of India for hundreds and thousands of years, of which the last 250 or 300 years is only a small part of. So we worked on this, and we made the spatial development program of Kolkata synonymous with the creative economic development. So what we did, we recreated the entire town hall. So there is actually an YouTube which is there on the net if anybody is interested. So we created a revisioning of the city by looking at the creative industries of writers, like Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and Rabindranath Tagore, creative film making of people like Satyajit Ray or Mrinal Sen or Tapan Sinha, and so on and so on. And it gave us a huge opportunity of things which already exist, but we have always thought it of as an either or. And all that is plugged up with a very high-end infrastructure, information, IoT driven, which is the Internet of Change driven, planner units are being utilized for the, it's coming up in phases. And I was very fortunate to be the interior designer and architect for this project. And so we got a real living chance to relook at the city region, and the larger region of Eastern India through a museum, which is not a static identity, but a showcase, like the way the Smithsonian museums are there in Washington, or the City Museum is there in Kuala Lumpur, and many more. So in India, the need of the hour is to make these live museums of creative economy. I'm very excited about this November summit of 2024. So I think one small proposal can be to create a living museum, not a museum, but a living museum of what India is. And we'll be happy to be a part of this, as Dr. Namburipad wonderfully said. So with this, I'm going to be a little fast from this point onward, because I have a few slides, about 25 slides. So we reportrait the entire Bengal Renaissance by the distributive patterns of the creative economy. And people really had a refreshment. There was a fresh air moving in the discussion forums, which otherwise becomes, very straight-jacketed and showing the history, the anthropology, the city spatial economics, and that's it. That's all about a city. But the city is just not that. It's about the creative people, the Kumar Tuli, and I'll come to that towards the end, which is the people with arts and crafts doing one of the largest festivals of India and the world, which is the Durga Puja, which is also a part of the UNESCO festival. And we are also part of that project. So what we did, sir, that we identified about 5 large industries, which are creative industries. One is the literature industry, and literature is just not writing books, but it's also creating podcasts and writing YouTubes. So you write your painting and you draw your books. That's called creative economy. You write your painting and you draw your books. And then you have the sum of histories industry. You look at him. This is a term which comes from quantum physics, Richard Feynman. So Feynman talks about sum of histories. There's nothing like history. So you always have a sum of histories. You need to look at between phases and across phases of time. The third one is iconographic and media industry, where India is #1 in the world, along with China and Persia, the Orient, you know. Our Indus Valley civilization is a display of icons and seals. There are more than 10,000 seals itself on the unicorn, which has been discovered in Indus Valley. So the unicorn was an icon of India, maybe of a horse or of one point, and it became a symbol of Christianity in the West, and it also became a symbol of autumn festival in Japan in the next few hundreds and thousands of years. So this is a contribution of India at a very global spread. But we needed to know all this through our creative industries and the art and craft industries, and most important of all, the riverine and water industries. Because essentially, our creative industries are across civilizations, and civilizations of India are across water lines. So connecting water with creative industries is a very important, like this great get together at Goa, which is going to be, it's along the water line. Yeah. You want to ask a question? Yeah. Yeah. I think someone has to unmute you. Yeah. Because I can't hear you. Or maybe in the end, sir, if you. Yeah.
Sir, I think we can take up the discussion towards the end.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just give you 3-4 examples. So between 2014
Sorry,
and 19,
sorry, Professor.
yeah, sure.
It's not a discussion. I lost out on that word that you are talking about, that iconography. How do you pronounce it? Ankan or Ankan? I mean, I just wanted to know. Somehow I lost.
The word, the original Sanskrit was is Ankana. Ankana means to draw. It is semiotics. It is just not a drawing, but it has a symbolism or an image. So it is from the word.
I missed.
Yeah. So it is from the one word Ankana comes the word icona, iconography. So it's etymology and language. Thank you. That was a very important question. It answers many other things. So we got a project at Varanasi where we walked on scales and fractals, and we connected various legions and the grassroots of Varanasi, connecting the order that exists in the city and the chaos that exists in the city. And then we looked at the creative economy, which starts from the river with the boatmen through the ghats and the steps, which are the ghats. And this is a project which we did with international universities, especially Ivy League universities like Columbia and Georgia Tech. And then we moved through the ghats, through the gullies and the mahallas and the lanes, and look at the shops which are inside, and they're the representation. So from the water into the lanes, it is a ribbon, as Professor Graham Hitchin was saying, the channels of creative economy. So the mapping gave us an attempt to rediscover the city by looking at these channels. I think I'll stop here because there's so much to say, but today I'll just restrict to the keywords. So based on this, we created about 8 micro proposals. We could not finish them because we entered COVID, but I'll just focus on 1 or 2. We activated a heritage trail, and today you have a Suve Varanasi, which happens in Asi Ghat, because Asi Ghat is on the flatter terrain of Varanasi. So instead of building any structure, we converted the entire terrain of Asi Ghat with all its steps, which Mark Twain said, I can see 400 years in every step. Varanasi is older than history. So we converted that into a creative stage. And what happens today, every 4 o'clock, there is a new artist who's given a chance, he or she, to perform his creative industry and exchange with other creative people on the ghats of Varanasi. So this was the first project. And the Nigam, the Varanasi Nigam, got the idea jointly from IIT BHU, whom I must acknowledge here. They are our partners, and IIT Kharagpur. And we did a few other projects, like you can read that, like meditation traditions, pedestrian master plan. That project was also taken up by a Uchchatara UAY project, Avigyan Yojana project, and creative cluster augmentation. So there are about 8 projects. I'll quickly run through those slides. So we did this heritage activation trail. So one of my student, Professor Feroz knows her, Moli, did her master's on this, and Dipanjan did an extension of that as his PhD, who met Charles Landry. And because of those two projects and because of this wonderful work and papers, I've come to know more about the deep potentials inside Varanasi itself. So mapping, as Professor Graham was saying, is very, very important. Paribrajan, going to the city, going to the road, talking to people, just not computers and data, but analog data, interactive, inclusive, creative interactions with the people at site, not one time, two times, possibly 50 or 100 times, is the lifeline of India's creative economic resurgence. So the one which you have already done and you're going to do in Kozhikode must have this lifeline. I think NIT Calicut and other institutes of Kerala can take a huge lead in this. So we did a similar thing in the Sarnath area, and it was taken up initially by a Japanese foundation. I must acknowledge it was an extension of that. And then we did some heritage trail, and another former scholar of mine, she is in Anand School of Design, Dr. Vidhu Vansal, she did her doctoral thesis on it, and she combined Charles Landry and Christopher Alexander's pattern language within the Indian tradition. And that was a wonderful blend. And she did a lovely work. More than a PhD thesis, this was a realization. Knowing our own people, whom otherwise we think are the children of the lesser God. It's not true. They are the children of the greater God. So the entire creative economic resuscitation is to bring the lesser into the greater, is to bring the darker into the lighter, to bring the exclusive into the inclusive, to bring the either or into complementarity and harmonious relationship. So this transformative process is the lifeline of creative industries. It does not only change the city, it does not only change the industrial base, but it changes you, the architect. It changes me, the planner, our attitude. We become a slightly better human being. That is the biggest contribution of creative economic driven planning and whatever you may call it. So as a whole, we looked at Varanasi. This is a part of our Science and Heritage project, one of the largest projects offered by the Ministry of Education about 8 or 9 years back. Professor Firoz was a part of this project to a certain extent. I think in the tail end when he was leaving IIT Kharagpur. So we have huge connections, and there are others. So this is something which we looked at Varanasi, and this is what Mark Twain has said. And then you realize how old is the city, how old is the tradition, and how new is it still, and how prospective it is to reapply for our economic resuscitation and regeneration, especially in the world of today, where the stock market is dancing and the big industry-driven economy is not looking absolutely good. So you need a parallel, complementary, coexistent, inclusive economic system. So that is why creative economy is so important, so important. So in Bilbao in 2005, when I was there, I was exposed to the creative economic resuscitation, which was done by the second Frank, that is Frank Gehry. He designed the second Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. So we saw the museum with his team. I think the first museum was designed by the first Frank in New York, that is Frank Lloyd Wright. So Guggenheim Museum represents the lifeline of living museums of creative economy. So what is it? It is the revival of the pre-Christian Andalusia, Spanish Armada, where there was an Asiatic Islamic civilization in Iberia, which was transferred to the Christian civilization by Isabelle and Ferdinand and others. So that entire transfer of power was actually a transfer of culture. That is how the Asiatic Assyrian Islamic arch became the Gothic arch, and so on. That is how the Asiatic coffee became the European coffee. That is how the Asiatic culinary habits became the European culinary habits. And there is a 250-dot micro list of that. So that is creative economy. And this is exactly what Frank Gehry did with Guggenheim. So this is a very special area. And I was absolutely inspired with another 200 people in this conference. And we heard a fantastic deliberation by Charles Landry. And I know I want to take you to a second example. I'm not going to talk much about that. This is in Mexico. So this is Santa Fe, which you can also look. And you can see how a resurgence of creative economy is also coming up in Latin America. And United States is actually learning from this example and reviving some of its old cities like Philadelphia or say Portland and even San Francisco. And even Boston. I was in Boston last year, so I could see some of the changes coming to the city. And Harvard is giving a lot of emphasis on this to transform their economic base. The other good example is Tainan in Taiwan, which is a fantastic example of creative economy. So young students and scholars here, the future of India who are present here, they should pick up this example and see how important are these examples where there's a total resurgence, whether the microfinance, the microfabrication, the micro-industrial, the micro-regenerative industrial products at the back end of Tokyo are all creative industries. And that also supports the design industries like Kyoto University as another. And IIT Hyderabad is also working along these lines, under the leadership of Professor Murthy and others. They have a creative economic industry-driven school of design. And I'm so happy that Professor Firoz and others is taking a similar lead at NIT Calicut, because this is the need of the hour. This is the need of the hour. And so I'll come to the last project. This is something which we just got before the COVID. And we worked with the Queen's Mary University of London, IIT Kharagpur. And this project was sponsored by the British Council Division in Kolkata. And we did a detailed creative economic mapping of Durga Puja. And we found out that the actual Bengal's economy is virtually run by Durga Puja, which is not only a circular economy, but also cyclic economy. So I'm not going to go through the data. This report is available on the net. Still, it's there. And there are about 14 reports which were forwarded to the UNESCO. And this was one for which Durga Puja got the UNESCO largest intangible heritage-driven cultural creative economic function, which is an economic function on the surface, on the surface structure, in the words of Noam Chomsky, but in the deep structures, it celebrates the mother goddess, which is a tradition of looking at God in another way in India, just not God the Father, but also God as the mother. This is a beautiful way. So it is just not God the big industry, but it's also God the small industries. That's the mother. All the children in the family are brought together. So this is a fantastic work, a chance we got, and this is how we mapped. We went to about 5% of the Durga Puja pandals, which was a few hundreds of them. We started about 10 days before. Our scholars participated, and these are some of our datas. And it was a revelation of extravaganza, inspiration, hopes, opportunities, and channels to transform weaknesses into strengths and threats into opportunities. So creative economics is actually a transformative principle. So we just kept on doing that, and it was a joint collaboration. We are finally about to do an exhibition on the banks of Thames, and then COVID came in. That was the year 2020, and it did not happen, maybe later. So these are some of this from those projects. And this is the whole team. So you can see the Queen's Mary University of London team on to the right, and you can see some of us on the left. The middle people are from the Ministry of Culture, both from the government of West Bengal, and there are also people from the UNESCO. And it was, I learned a lot. I became a student during this project because I did not know these things before I did this project. So I'll end my presentation. What exactly is creative economy? And this is what the man who contributed the national anthem of our country was talking about for hundreds of years. And he created this at Shantiniketan, and he brought the best of people from all over the world, from C.F. Andrews to Patrick Geddes and everyone else. And one of his cousins was Gogodendranath Thakur. And somewhere in 1992, he invited the Bauhaus from Germany. And in Kolkata, when nobody knew about Bauhaus at that point of time, and IIT Roorkee did a conference on this prior to COVID, Professor Gaurav Rahija. And I hope that Professor Rahija is involved in the Goa festival, because I mean, if he's around, I'll also come and join, because he's my very old friend. And this is where there is an ancient connection between Germany and India for a long, long time. What I mean to say is that in the industrial resurgence that happened first in Germany and then after the Second War to Harvard and other, everyone shifted, including Heisenberg, Albert Einstein, and many other people. So there was also a shift of creative economics from the Western Europe to the eastern boards of United States of America. But the first exhibitions happened in Kolkata, and nobody knew much about what exactly is creative economy. So this slide is almost towards an end. So I'm working on the possibility of a creative economic driven design school. So we need design schools, that just not typical architecture and planning schools, but design school with a thrust of creative economy, which has these ideas included. So it's not a paradigm shift, but it's a paradigm expansion. And this is how all our IITs and NITs and all our other schools of design has to transform themselves and look at creative industries and creative economy in a very good way. But what is at the root of all this? This is my last slide. What you are actually doing at the end of the day, you're doing something which Roger Walcott Sperry talked about in 1981. He got his Nobel Prize. You're actually combining the left brain thinking of analytics and big industries and production with a right brain thinking of creativity, talents, literature, music, film, media, art, all the other things which otherwise we think that's something else. So when we are doing that outside, you're actually combining the two forces which is inside. And you actually start transforming your students into polymath. You not only do that, you make them happy, because the students are both good at Python script in computer programming, and then they can also pick up a sitar or a guitar or a brush and paint. So as a human being, they become happier, and they also can form healthy families when they mature. And that way, a much larger social fabric will emerge in this country. So creative economic regeneration is an inversion, as Simon Kuznets states, where you move from red-filled tendencies of industrial development and the way we look at industries and economics, more inclusive.
Professor Joyson, I think there is a technical issue. Please hold on for a minute. There is some technical glitch. Professor Joyson will join us soon.
Professor Joyson will join in 2 minutes. There is some current power failure in the campus, IIT Kharagpur. He'll join in 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Hello. Yeah.
We can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah, I think you're winding up your
Yeah,
present.
I'm so sorry. So I think there's a revolt between the mainstream economy and the creative economy. So the power just went off in the campus. And I'm on a low battery computer. So anything quick. And I'm also on a Geo dongle connection. So, and you can see me in darkness. So I have to move from darkness to light. Yeah, yeah. But I hope I could make my point. And I think a few things were clearer to you. So creative economy, madam, and others has been a part of my little life. And Dr. Feroz, Professor Feroz Mohammed has been very close to me. And he's one person who has interacted days and months with me on this topic. And today I'm so excited to see that it's coming up in such a big way in Kozhikode. And in November 2024 in Goa, something as big as this is coming up. I'll see if I can join that if it's possible.
Thank you, sir. Just a word of note. Of course, I don't know if you know here, Professor Joyson was my PhD supervisor at IIT Kharagpur. So we worked for 4 years, 2010 to 14. One small thing, because when we started this thing for Kozhikode, when Professor Ajit and the mayor was asking me, what we can do. In fact, I don't know whether Professor Joyson remember it. For all those things, I made a first call to you. Sir, I'm going to take a studio on this. What is your say on it? Because the general feedback which I got from my colleagues is that don't do it. Okay. So I just immediately made a call to Professor Joyson and he said, no, you should do it. And he sent me some articles and some work which he has done that time. So that is a basis based on which we started our work. And the rest is history. So one day, indirectly, the city of Kozhikode as well as United Calicut is highly indebted to you. Though directly you are not involved, you gave me the courage and confidence to take it, and we could contribute to the city. Thank you. I think the floor is open for questions. The rest of the people, please.
Again, can I just intervene? It's not a question, Professor. I just wanted to. Professor, you were talking about the museums, Smithsonian, Guggenheim, etc. I'm currently in Assam. Recently, I was in Shillong. Just wanted. I'm sure that you would have seen that the Don Bosco Center for Indigenous Culture.
Yes,
It's the first time that I've seen this kind of a thing here. I mean, it's a 56,000 square feet, 7-story building, giving a beautiful view of the entire northeastern creative economy. The kind of people, their culture, the anthropology, their activities, commerce, industry, etc. No, I'm only trying to connect it with whatever you were saying, that the importance of museum as a creative economy mascot or as something, a gateway into that. It is very important. I think Honorable Mayor is also there. So this is, I was just looking, of course, the Northeast is much more fertile kind of a land where you can have this kind of a thing, because it is some seven or 8 states, a lot of tribal cultures, etc. A state like Kerala may not have, but I mean with a decent kind of a deep kind of a research and study, I think it is possible. It will be very important. People like Professor Shibu Raman, etc. are all there. I'm sure that they'll have their views on this. This is very important. I just got I just got connected with that. That's it. Oh, you were wanting to say something. I want
Yeah, just to add to what nicely you're saying, sir, is that, I mean, one major area will be to look at the global maritime history of Kerala and the resurgence of creative economy, like the Chinese copper, the tea, the presence of the
Of course,
Jews.
Calicut, Kozhikode would be the right place also, because that is where Vasco da Gama came in and all those
absolutely,
issues. The maritime history, the
the
whole
maritime
of India is, one more very small issue. I mean, an honorable mayor is there. I don't know whether I can spill the beans here. I mean, with her permission, let me do that. Recently, we were in IIM Kozhikode. So another fellow, Bengali, Professor Chatterjee, Debashish Chatterjee is heading that. He made a very beautiful statement. This is also creative economy kind of a thing. So he was mentioning about the need for, Calicut in the context of this creative economy and all, the need to have it a color code, like in Jaipur, or the cities, we have got some streets. I mean, you may not know, my Malayali friends will, the Essence streets. So to identify, to try to get that city identified with a color and etc. So she was also. So I just happened to be there. So I just mentioned Calicut is connected with Calico, the printing industry.
Yes.
So if you have a color for the printing industry, maybe probably Zapier or something, you can think of it. My young friends from the architecture background are there. So that is why with the permission of the mayor, I am just spilling the beans in the sense.
Absolutely.
So these kinds of interesting interventions are there. I'm sure that we'll be able to, with these kinds of things, a museum and these that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
For your information, shall I say a few words? We have few private museums here. Very good museums. And another thing is for the heritage spots, we have selected brick red as the color of the roof in common.
Right.
That we have specified.
Yeah, no, that is very important. Yeah.
And as you said, we have to think of Calico in the town area.
Madam, I am from Bengal, and Bengal and Kerala together controlled the indigo and the calico industries, the weaving industries of the world, up to a very long.
Yes, indigo and calico. Yes.
Yeah, indigo and calico were the lifeline of the weaving industry, which went through the Persian Gulf into Egypt and to Alexandria and others.
It was really nice to listen to your, inclusivity and creative economy. Really, it's an eye-opening session. For me, I never thought that all these things can be related with the creative economy. So thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you so much, madam, for your kind words. And since my very near and dear former scholar, Professor Feroz, is there, so I am a part of your project. Don't worry.
Okay.
Shall I actually say a few words?
Sure, sir.
Actually, as a part of the city beautification project, which corporation is taking up in a big way, all the three municipal corporations, Trivandrum, Kochi, and Kozhikode, we are actually into designating each of the cities with the imageability and how that city should look, what is the design, signages, what is the aspect of signages that has to be. We are just formed an SPV with respect to that for 3 cities. And we are working together for that. 1 month, we are making a concept paper in this regard, and then will be presented to the city monitoring committee, which is actually mayor is heading it. And we will be taking projects with respect to that, which will align with all these aspects that we have been talking about. So it's a great place to work, and we look forward for a better city of course, both on all the 3 cities actually.
I don't know. If everything goes right, maybe I'll be there in Kerala in the end of August, that Trivandrum conference, which is the IIA conference. Yeah. So I'll be in touch with Professor Feroz, and maybe I'll be a part of the process. I'll come and visit you if possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
It'll be a great pleasure, just to serve, we just serve each other, and collectively we serve our own country. That's,
Thank you.
Yeah, this year national conference at Institute of Town Planners conference also is going to be held in Trivandrum in next to January 2025.
Oh, wonderful!
So that is
so many Keralas, many trips to Kerala then. Yeah, wonderful. So Feroz has to sponsor us again and again. Yeah.
Okay, sir, yeah.
That is just a joke. We'll take care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think,
and one city is very important in the context of different variety of museum. That's Bhopal. Yeah, Bhopal is very strong there. Yeah, so some lessons from there may also come in. You may like to rope in one or two people from. I'm not talking about SPA Bhopal only, but people who are involved with the Bhopals. There are about 5 museums in that city. Yeah. 5 large museums. And the city is doing one.
Yeah.
So maybe because I think this Kozhikode experiment can come up as a demonstration, as a wonderful example for other cities to emulate. Other cities. How you plan the networks, how you plan the IoTs of the global connections and the tourism inflow into it. How you plan the maritime, the coastline. Adventure tourism with a creative economy, which is inland, and vice versa. So I think I can have a talk with Professor Feroz and the team, and we can brainstorm on this. And then maybe from 16 or 17, you can prioritize the top 5, which are both ideological and also has a business model. It should be both. It's an ideological model which serves the state, and it is also pragmatic. It has a business model.
Thank you, sir. I think over to Arabi. I think we'll stop questions so that we can keep on time.
Yes, thank you so much.
I can share Professor Joyson's email ID. Any question people can ask directly.
Yeah, please, because I have to get into something else.
I know you have another meeting to go. You told me very clearly.
It was such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Joyson, for sharing your perspective on creative economy and creative cities. It was interesting to find out that creative economy has long been a part of India's essence. And it was great to learn from the major international and national examples. Once again, thank you, sir. Again, as we understand, due to your busy schedule, you'll be leaving the meeting. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Beena Philip, the chair of the session, for her insights, and we'll be moving on to the panel discussions.
About the two addresses.
Yeah, regarding.
Yeah, we are moving. I mean,
yes,
the discussion over, or is it the question and answer time for Professor Sen?
Ma'am, we have finished with the question and answer session, and we'll be concluding the
I
keynote
will move on to
session
the panel discussion, right?
Yes, so if you would like to conclude that.
Okay. Both the topics were really interesting. And for me, maybe for the others who have been in this field for a longer time, will not feel it very, something very novel. But to me, when Professor Hutchinson said that he has given a list of creative industries, though they are all creative, we never thought of all those industries as creative. And one thing was lacking, that was agriculture. And the food and the crops and about value-added products and all. And especially in Kozhikode, we think a lot about food, that you all know. So that was not discussed. And I don't know, I want to include that too under creative industry. That's one comment. And then about the comics and games and visual, that AVGC, quite interesting that even in the countryside, in Calicut, I'll mention that. I don't know about the other districts. In Calicut, I've seen children or youngsters who are from the rural areas. They are very creative. They are innovative. They make a lot of new things on the internet, which are very useful for others. So apart from comics and games, they are they're designing something, or I don't know whether what you call it. They make certain things which are really useful. I don't know the technical word for that. They program certain things, and without much, professional knowledge or any particular brand of IT, they can do many things on their own. So that's really interesting, and that's really creative. That's what I have found. And I do remember Nirmala Sitharaman declaring the name of a boy from Mukkam. Mukkam is in Kozhikode district. And on their entrepreneurship, what they made, she recommended for an international platform. So that way, the youth and the adolescents are very much creative in IT. I just want to acknowledge that. And about Professor Joy Sense, I think I have already expressed my view on what he said. And I think all of us, as he was inspired, we, the listeners, were also, the participants were also inspired by his keynote address on creative economy and inclusivity or inclusiveness in cities. So that's all what I felt like worth mentioning. So we'll move on to the
Thank you,
next.
Dr. Bina.
Yeah, that is the panel discussion.
Yes. Yeah. Now we are moving on to panel discussion on the theme Cultural Catalyst, Creative Economy and Sustainable Urban Development in Indian and Kerala Cities. The discussion will be guided by Dr. Muhammad Firoz, Head of the Department of Architecture and Planning, NIT Calicut. Now I invite Dr. Firoz to introduce the panelists and lead the discussion.
Am I audible, Arabi?
Yes, sir?
My sound is audible?
Yes, very much.
Because I just got a message that my sound, this room is not acoustically. Is it okay?
It's in between.
It's quite difficult to understand. I don't know whether it is for everyone. There's a bit of an echo or a bit of a wobble in the sound.
Just give me 1 minute. I'll go to the next room, my neighboring room. I'll just start from there with my laptop. 1 minute.
Meanwhile, I'll just introduce the panelists. So we have Dr. Bina Philip, Mayor Kozhikode, Kerala, and then we have Sadesh Namboodiripad, IAS, Director General, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. And we have Dr. Shibu Raman, Senior Lecturer in Architecture and Urbanism, Cardiff University. And we have Dr. Ajit Kalyat, Kerala Institute of Local Administration.
Yeah, Arabi, am I audible better here?
I think it's better here, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the agenda for today's panel discussion is primarily how to take the cities of India and Calicut, especially Kerala cities, to the next level of the topic cultural catalyst, creative economy and sustainable urban development in Indians and Kerala cities. Now here the pattern of the presentation is primarily some people are looking for slides. Some people are willing to speak on the topic without any slides, so it's okay. So we are going to give at least some 10 minutes for each of the discussants to speak. I'll try to keep some questions regarding this topic, and they can share their experiences and how to make Indian and Kerala cities more aligned to the creative economy. So to start with, let me start with Dr. Bina Philip, Mayor, because she has, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of participants from different parts of the globe. So I wish her to speak on her experiences in branding Calicut as a creative city. What has she gone through the process, how it all started and from where it has ended right now? And what is your plan to make the city better for improvising the quality of life of the people? And what are your action plans for the same?
The different steps through which we gone through, I don't think that is to be.
Hello?
Was the agency that reminded us about the possibilities of getting us as the status of City of Literature for Kozhikode. Otherwise, we were totally ignorant about it. So that was the beginning, if I can say. And then I think we all joined, all the people from different walks of life, the publishers, the Chamber of Commerce people, and all the Architects Association, and the common people, and the writers, and the poets. They all joined hands when we proposed this idea to the public. That's the first step where we got all the energy to move forward. And then it was step-by-step interventions from Prague and from CET University and NIT Calicut. The mayor's SDG fellows were actually, they were posted by Kila, and then we had to find our own fellows for continuing the process. And since it was started with the Prague University, we got a chance to speak to, or rather through the video conferencing, we got a chance to speak to the other cities who got the status before us. So then I have to mention here, because when at that point of time, when we thought of the creativity or city of literature, even Firoz was thinking, in what way can literature be connected to architecture? And then it all happened. It evolved, I could rather say. It evolved because they were all youngsters. They were creative. So when we proposed, when we exposed them to the different possibilities and the different specialities of Kozhikode city, especially food and writers and publishers and libraries and journals and the freedom fighters, history, all these, when we connected them, they could picture it in such a beautiful way that the information that they gathered, they classified into 3 sections. And especially for literature, they could present something worth watching. And, we all had the feeling that the Calicut people really deserved this status. That was the beginning in KLF, when we presented it before the general public. And that is the beginning, in fact. And then we moved forward. And, the kind of bid documents or the application we had to submit. In all those, they specified many things, but we had already gathered, we have already conducted, and so many things apart from the special features they requested for in the application form. So whatever they asked, we had to fill. If it is in 100 characters or 200 characters, or 1,500 characters, we could write it in a very, what I might say, impressive manner, and with actually real support of support for the authenticity of what we had written. After that, and I must say, Mr. Namboodiripad was the focal point for us in Delhi. He was the person who actually helped us a lot, because we were searching for a black cat in a dark room, because no other city has gained that status, and we had no other role model to discuss certain things. So through Dr. Namboodiripad, we, the mayor, and one of the IAS people, they were commenting, this is the first time a mayor is coming to Delhi, because we had no other no one to ask for help except Kila. And thus we went there, a few people, especially our PG student, he had passed out, M-Plan from NIT, Mr. Mehmer Nimil, and Irene Anthony, who was sitting just right of me, and she too, they all started the fundamentals that we needed. They surveyed, they gathered information, and they listed it. And with their help, and especially Nimil's, we could convince the people whom we went to about how what I might say, desirable for them to give a green flag to the city of Kozhikode. That is the beginning. And after submitting it on the almost the last day of the application, we believed that we would get it. That's all about it. And then we had to do many things, like everybody who listened to the phrase city of literature, they always think of only literature. That we had to change through a number of programs, to a number of meetings, especially a number of interviews in the journals, as well as on the net or on the media visionary channels. We could make people that it's time they had to think different. Literature doesn't mean in letters alone. So that is the way we are moving right now. And I'm sure, I just want to quote an example. A medical representative who was very good in fine arts, he used to contest in some of the painting competitions, and he used to get the first prize or second prize for most of them. He entrusted all his pictures with it's not good of me to tell that incident. I would rather say that he didn't know that his paintings or his drawings were that artistic, that it could be sold in the market for such a high price. 2 persons from Kozhikode, they collected most of the art forms of this person who had given it as a gift to his friends. They collected it and they sent it for 2 lakhs and 3 lakhs each. So that is an example that I can say that those people who are really creative, their work will be here, but they don't know how to get it. But if in the city, if we have good people who are ready to, organize all these people together and make them perform their art form, whatever it is, and then that can be sold and these people will get some income out of it. So a creative economy also grows along with the creativity of people, real creativity in different fields. That's all. That's one example. Another example in industry, that's what I was thinking. In industry, you might have heard of Faisal Kotikolan or PK Steels in Kozhikode, Faisal Kotikolan and Shabana Foundation. And I had a chance to go to Sharjah and Dubai to see how the factory works. There, this person, without mentioning it is creativity that he had been using, he showed us how he allowed his employees spend their time for sports, for games, for yoga and other artistic performances. And he had a yoga place especially made for the employees. He allowed people to take leave for half a day for practicing for volleyball and basketball and football. And like that, actually this person used his creativity, or rather he encouraged the creativity of the employees thereby. They never left his company, and he could produce a large amount of profit out of that business or that industry. So that is, creative industry means in industry, we have to use the creative ideas as well as the employees' creative talents to be blossomed, and the person or the employer has to give a chance for all those things to come out. That makes them feel more belonged to this group and more self-confident, and their talents are being recognized by others. That itself gives them a lot of motivation. That the two examples I quoted to people, and now they are really, the people, even the media, they are simply sticking on to literature and letters and books and authors, not more than that. Slowly, they are thinking about the other areas, creative industries, creative areas, where we can think of connect with the creative economy and creative bureaucracy. Ajit was mentioning creative bureaucracy. Then I thought of this Faisal's example, how the employees were motivated to work more, to live more peacefully and safe. So these are the two examples from my own life. And I think further panelists will, supplement more ideas in what all ways we can think of, making our governance creative, making our bureaucracy creative, and thereby making a creative economy, which is highly needed these times in the case of Kerala as a state with a lot of the largest densely populated place in India. So the next person to talk is, you are the moderator, no, Feroz.
One more part of the question.
Yeah. So
what is your action plan for the city now? Now, since that, with all the efforts, we have won the title of Creative City Network Kozhikode. Now, as a mayor, of course, during your term or even after that, how do you want the city to, what are the action plans so that, even other cities can take the advantage?
Yes. Feroz, when we gave the application, we specified a few things which we could do within 2 years, 4 years, and 5 years and all. But now I think my what I might say, view to this status has changed slightly, because I requested Ravi DC to start a residency program here to facilitate the residency program. He could help. So he told me in corporation area, I have a few sets of land with a house there. I'm going to, renovate that house, add little more rooms to it, and that can be used as Kozhikode City of Literature's residency, inviting other people. He has already started in Kottayam district, inviting people from France and Germany and all. His son Govind has visited most of the creative cities in the world. So thereby, I think he's a good asset for Kozhikode, because he thinks positively about starting that creative residency program there. So the Kozhikode Corporation need not do everything. Well, now we have you might have watched that office where we started that Samskarya Kendram at Anakulam. We have decided to make it a center for the activities of this literature city. So that way, There will be music, there will be dance, there will be book releases, there will be discussion, there will be that Kolaya culture which we had. Now we are bringing back to Anakulam. It is a good building. It's a good ambience there, so that many things can happen in that particular center. And that's what we have decided. And 75% of the repair work is already over. And within 1 month, I think we can start it. And that will be a good center attracting people. That's another thing. And tomorrow, all the publishers have decided they are going to give 40% discount on any book tomorrow for the whole day, so that people can buy books. They voluntarily came up with that 40% discount. We never asked them to give so much, but they voluntarily came out. That's one thing. And from the literature field, I think most of the writers, they have given their videos for their willingness to join hands with us, and also complimenting our work that we have done. That's one thing. And I think I have mentioned it. In the first time in the history of the two chambers of commerce we have, Calicut Chamber of Commerce and Malabar Chamber of Commerce. Both these people together, what they did after we getting that literature city status, first time in their life, they declared an award for Sarga Award for a good writer and his work. They selected Mr. Seduraman IPS as the awardee, and they gave him Sarga Award. And they invited our M.N. Karasheri Master for their keynote speaker. For 1.5 hours, Karasheri Master spoke. And I don't know how they enjoyed it. And they were acknowledging, first time in our life, we had such an opportunity to listen to a writer or a teacher. He's a teacher come writer. So that way, now people think of turning to literature, turning to creativity in spite of thinking only about profit and money making. That's one thing which was really, it was the beginning for me that people have taken up the responsibility of thinking towards the creativity and changing themselves into that. So many are willing to do. Whoever I contact, they say we are ready to help you in any way possible. What do a mayor need more than this? So I'm sure this will go on and on. And we are planning to have an SPV or a trust to make things move forward. And Mr. Nambudripad and our Chief Secretary, if they retire, hope they'll be in Kozhikode so that it will be safe in their hands. And when they cannot move along, they can give it to the baton should be given back to or given to somebody else who are more interested in this, and who younger than our people, so that it will go ahead. That's what I dream of.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, there are a lot of other things happening within the city, because a lot of school kids are highly involved. There is a lot of activities at the school level, children parliament.
Yes.
These are all actually a lot of social inclusive things are happening within the city, which is actually uncountable, or the economic, the impact of which has created for the city and the people are non-measurable. So thank you for taking the lead. Now, due to lack of time, I have to move to the next discussion, which is Satish Nambudripad, sir. Sir is a very particular person, because he has worked in, of course, he's a bureaucrat, he's a civil service officer who has worked in different sectors and different levels of the government of India. Okay. Now, sir, my question to you is, as a person who's worked in the government, of course, with an interest in public policy, how do you see this concept to be taken to the other cities of India? Because see, when Professor Joyson presented, or even otherwise, see the number of cities in India which we have with such a great culture, okay, with great backup of creative industries. If you really look at the number of cities in India, 6 or 7 cities are only backed up with the Creative Cities Network. Whereas in Europe, more than the whole of the 300, 400 cities of the world, which is recognized under UNESCO, more than 70% are in Europe, whereas we represent 1/6 of the world population. So as a bureaucrat with very close need to the government, how do you foresee that we can take it to the next level of policy making, as well as inspiring other cities of the country to take up this initiative, and how to develop creative economy for India?
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. And I'm pretty aware of my inadequacy to talk about the subject as a professional, because I'm not into the creative aspects on a day-to-day basis, or I'm not into the architectural or urban planning kind of a sector. My exposure into the whole thing, I mean, whole world in this particular manner has been very recent. As Mayor was mentioning about having been dragged into it by some kind of a chance. Number two, as a civil servant, where these kinds of issues, and not exactly in these terms, but it keeps coming up. So I'm pretty, I have my limitations to talk about it. The whole thing, but I'll try to answer. But before doing that, especially in the light of this question, even before that, I thought I want to share a very, very, very short video with you. It's an endorsement from a very high level. It is about the government of Kerala, about the Kerala's thing. Some of you would have seen it, but some of them would not have. But it also answers some of the points that Professor Feroze had mentioned. If you allow me, it is only 1 minute and 15 seconds or something. If you would allow me, let me just do that.
Please share. So the volume is not there. There is no sound.
That's all. I think you have been able to hear it.
Not really, but we could read that in my.
That's right. I'm sorry. What is the problem? No. It was. I just wanted to mention that whatever you are mentioning about this matter is true of. It's not limited only to Kerala. See, the way we have not been able to I want to use the word professionally or industrially, what do you call, project our strength to the rest of the world. Of course, tourism has come up in a major way, but the problem, Professor, is that very recently, Kerala has got a couple of officers, etc., from North India, my staff, my batchmates, friends, etc., who go to Kerala states. They try to get some information. For example, they go to Vadakanatha Swami temple, Vadakanatha temple in Trichur, or to what they call the waterfalls near what is that place, where as a non-Malayali, whether they would want to understand certain things from the history of it, the geography of it, a little bit of the culture behind it, we have not been able to give it. Except in the case of, this is what I have noticed, except in the case of places where the UNESCO's heritage tag, tag has been given. For example, you go to Sanchi Stupa or to Ajanta Ellora, fort, etc., where a little bit of descriptions are there, some kind of a mentioning are there. They will be able to. Otherwise, the ability for us to tell the story in short words, somebody, a tourist, this is precisely, I think, is the most important thing as far as, projecting our facilities to the rest of the world is concerned. Cultural diversity of India and the state, the tangible and intangible heritages, etc. But lack of clarity about these sites or are not being able to give it, I mean, project it to a set of people who are totally new. It is true, I think, everywhere. That could be one reason, because our sense of history is totally different. Now we are only Indians here, so our sense of history is very Gangetic. We talk in yugas. So a couple of years is not our issue at all. Whereas the proper recording of facts and presenting it to the rest of the people, that is precisely the most important issue. That is number one. Number two, I just wanted to, I mean, what is this, the question that you were asking to the mayor also, what are you going to do out of it? I'll suggest that four things are very, very important for any of these people to take up. I mean, in further to take it up is, one is commerce, then the creativity, then I think this technology and its skilling. These four aspects, commerce as a primary aim. Commerce not because of money-making kind of a thing, but commercial application of all these facilities, with the backup of creativity, number two, technology, number three, skilling. Unless and until we do these, and these three things we can do only by investing in the youngsters. It is, I mean, and now we all know that the sociological aspects of Kerala, where what is the 53% of the total population of India are in particular age group, whereas in India, in Kerala, it is only 17%. Why are our youngsters going out of that place? So those kinds of issues. So I'm very clear that achievements of the past is of any relevance to the present if only it is made lucrative for the future. This, we have not been able to do that. We have to make the achievements of the past lucrative in the sense it's commercial or beneficial, economical. What is there in for me by this? I mean, M.T. Vasudevan Nair or Urup or Kuttikrishnan or Vaikim Muhammad Bashir lived in Kerala and Kozhikode. So what? What is in for me? So you have to, that is a kind of a commercial application. I'm not saying that you have to negate the history, everything for penny. No, that's not what I'm saying. But the youngsters and the creation of job facilities or opportunities for employment, unless and until we make it through the commercial application of the creativity of the past, I think we will not be able to do that. That should be the major concern of states like, the cities like Kerala, Calicut, etc. And of course, in currently India, we have got 13 states. It is slightly more than 7 that you mentioned. 13 states are there, including the three, what do you call, two of the Patana Nagaram, what is it called? The learning, city of learnings also, which is slightly under another category, 13 of them. But the number is, but that is, I think, the UNESCO has been a Europe-centric. Even if you look at it more critically, out of the 350, 370, nearly 50% will be in France itself. Why? Because UNESCO is stationed there. That issue is there, but because the requirement of the kind of recordings or the kind of what do you call the writings that you need to do, the very rigorous practice of getting the procedural issues are probably one reason why we have not been able to do. And there has also been, some other issues also. If you ask the same question to Mr. Dr. Venu, the Chief Secretary of Kerala, he will come out with a very, very anti-position vis-a-vis some of these institutions, So there are other issues also. The answer is not very, very simple as to why. India has only 13 cities. There are wheels within wheels. But if he start doing it in a proper way. One more thing, let me tell you. I was just, in the light of this, I was just Googling it. There are records in Google, etc., which says that Vadakanatha Swami temple in Trichur has been in 2005 or something. It has been declared a UNESCO site, but it is not there in any UNESCO's list. Out of the UNESCO center, I mean, already approved 1,176 states or something. I mean, it is not there. So these kinds of confusions are there. As far as, I mean, in the 14, I mean, if you look at Kerala government's websites, etc., they are talking of 14 important, I mean, historical places like Adakal Guha, there's that, etc., Kapad Beach, etc., etc. All of them are mentioned as part of the UNESCO centers, but they are not. So our record keeping is in very poor shape. We don't know what exactly the subtle differences have not been. I mean, people have come out with all kinds of things. So we need to start it afresh, and finally, being a skeptic, I mean, as a skeptic, what is so great about getting a UNESCO tag? And let us ask that kind of a question also. What is so great? And there are a large number of people who will ask that question also. And then the answer for that is, these are in a century or in a set of people where labels are supposed to be important. Of course, that is how. So and otherwise, it gives us an occasion to correct to firm up some of our procedural aspects, to prepare ourselves better to face the requirement, and it becomes part of our day-to-day or administrative psyche. Then we start working on it the way you were mentioning, or Honorable Mayor was mentioning. So there is a catalyst effect, there is a cascading effect because of these recognitions, these awards, etc. I think these are my initial responses. There are other important panelists also to talk. If anything more I need to do, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
I think we'll move to the next discussion. Dr. Shibu Raman. Dr. Shibu Raman has extensively worked on he's an architect and urbanist. Okay, so he has worked on design as an element, urban design as an element, and his students from Cardiff University in UK are stationed for at least 2 to 3 years in India. Every semester, every year they come here. They worked extensively on the city of Kozhikode. He has also worked in the city of Kochi. Okay, so I wished him to share a few insights on his take on this, and through design as an element, and how creative economy can be fostered or enhanced. Over to Dr. Shibu. He is using some slides, so he's probably presenting some of the takeaway from his student works, from his studio works as well. Over to Dr. Shibu.
Thank you, Firoza. Thank you for the opportunity. Could you let me share screen? It says host is disabled.
Irene?
Yes, sir.
Can you, I think the pivotal control with somebody else? Not me. Can you enable Dr. Shibu to share the screen?
Yes, sir.
Is it done, Irene?
No, sir. Shibu, sir, are you not able to share it?
Yeah, I can share now. Thank you. Right. So hope you can see the full screen.
Yes, sir. It's visible. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Like Firoz was saying, I've been working on Indian cities for a number of years now. So this is pretty much like some elements of the study that we've done. My engagement with Indian cities started way back in 2007. I'm obviously a graduate of Trivandrum, College of Engineering, and then went on to do my master's at Bartlett and then a PhD in Oxford. But in 2007, when we finished a massive project here called City Form, which was looking at the relationship between the physical form of city and sustainability, I encouraged my professor to kind of do a similar study of Indian cities, which are rapidly growing. And that started a 3-year project with NIUA, EPSRC, and British Council, as well as the Ministry of Urban Development, funding us to do a study of Rajkot and Faridabad, which are 2 unique cities. One is a naturally grown city, and the other one is a planned city. At the end of that project, I went away to China and then came back in 2015, joined Cardiff University, and this is when we started having engagement again with Indian cities, initially through Mangalore Smart City project, where they want us to be one of the advisor to them. And then we carried on working on Kochi from 2018, 19, and then last 2 years we've been working on Calicut. And we don't know where we'll go next, because the ministerial delegation visiting Cardiff University, seeing our research, like Chief Minister's delegation, was very keen for us to carry on doing these extensive and detailed analysis of cities in Kerala, which is very unique and very different from other cities around the world. But one of the key things that you need to see is that Indian cities have grown tremendously in the last 20, 30 years. And the number of towns and cities in India has grown from 5,100 in 2001 to 10,000 in 2000. So it's in a span of 20 years, it has literally doubled the number of cities. And that means that there's a massive increase in population in cities. Many of these are growing haphazardly and in organic ways, which may or may not be always a bad thing, but there are associated issues with it. Everybody's running behind the same sort of resources and same sort of ideas, which is a big problem, because in this discussion, we're talking about creativity. One thing that lacks in the urban development is creativity in terms of how to kind of leverage what are the potential of a city. We see cities, are growing, places of growing disparity in terms of income, in terms of access to services, education, environmental degradation, and so on and so forth. So this is just a picture of what city life could be, not just in India, but in many parts of the world where the haves and have-nots are extremely, contrasting, quality of life. So our interest was in looking at cities that can offer a better quality of life, and that include livelihood. We consider cities as one of the most complex things that people have ever created in the world. And therefore, everything that is in a city, whether that is a people system or a social system or a cultural system or economic system, institutional, environmental system, they all interact in very complex ways. And they're never in a static mode. So it's constantly one entity is influencing the other, or one system or one subsystem is influencing the other. And therefore, it's really important that we see cities as a complex system, and that we use as more appropriate modeling of or mathematical modeling of cities to understand how one thing affects the other in a city. In our research, we try to use, we've got very limited resources, just 10 days in India, and therefore we had to use kind of really effective way of mapping, modeling, and analyzing the city. So we use a lot of advanced mathematics, sensors, drones, all sorts of things to kind of collect the data, which can then document the physical fabric of the city, the socio-cultural aspect of the city through surveys and interactive questionnaires and so on and so forth. These are some of the images of our study in, for example, this is in Kochi, where students are engaging with public, talking to people, but also physically documenting heritage structures and heritage areas using 3D scanners and those kind of things. And these are typically what we get, like we don't just take pictures, we actually make a 3D model from the photographs that we've taken, which then allow us to kind of measure, document, physical fabric of the city. And the kind of analytical modeling that we are doing. So this, for example, in Kochi, as you can see, like the hotspots growth is predominantly moving towards the eastern side, which is ecologically sensitive suburban areas, which often is dragging the investment and economy away from the historic part of the city. So one of the thing about of Kerala is that it's not in a condition where there is a policy or an attitude that is conducive for large-scale polluting industry to flourish. On the other hand, the tourism and the other industry, which Kerala greatly depend on, does have particular challenges in terms of its global dependencies, such as shipbuilding, petrochemical industry, tourism, agriculture. These are dependent on global events such as climate change, global politics, and so on and so forth. So there is a real platform or a space for creative industry to take a root in Kerala in a much bigger manner, especially because of all the human resources that is available, all the kind of infrastructure which is there as a hidden mechanism. So like Professor Hitchen said, there's a lack of coordination. However, there are elements in there which can be coordinated better. And there is also, there was also a UN report somebody quoted saying that there's a decrease in investment in creative industry in India. So it is in this platform, it is in this atmosphere that we are trying to kind of find a way of supporting creative industry in Kerala. So we need to be really, really thinking big, but doing small kind of attitude. You cannot just be creating big master plans of large, creative industry zone kind of approach, which is an outdated old planning approach of zoned development. Whereas all the things that is already there, like all the weavers that actually work from their home, the cottage industries that are there, they are pretty comfortable within their own kind of environment. How do we kind of support them with, with infrastructure, with support mechanisms, policies, or other kind of incentives to flourish is the question that my students were asking, and we were trying to do this. We also found that there's a lot of other ways in which you can do. So I'm just giving an example. This is not like the only thing that we're doing, but there are places where there are things like the waste management and the waste that is produced by the growing middle class that could be used for creating new type of industry or new type of industry that may include creative industry. So here's some of the examples of what students were proposing in terms of possible way forward. This is a work that we've done in Mangalore, where a redundant tile factory, because much of the tile factory in Mangalore area, the Mangalore pattern tile that is globally well known, is all shut down, and they are staying there as redundant thing that is blocking people's access to the waterfront. So why not convert that into a center where with a bigger involvement of people? So she's developed this idea of actually collecting all the waste that is coming through the canals and recycling them and reusing some of the plastic which are there in terms of producing new creative products, such as a very specialized panels to encourage artists to work with the waste to produce products that could be desirable. And it's not about just doing this kind of hodgepodge thing, but it is about creating high quality, high value upcycling of the products or of the waste. This is another student who is proposing a small infrastructure at neighborhood level to promote creative process or creative industry. So he's proposing things like fab labs and things, and how things that electronic waste to plastic to other things can be brought into the center to kind of develop new things and new ideas, and it could also become like something that the youth would engage in and engage the youth in a creative manner rather than wasting their time in doing unwanted things. So this is like, at a neighborhood level, identify small hubs that you can invest in, and then give the kind of ownership and control over to the neighborhood, over to the community to kind of create this. in this particular example, the act of cleaning up the canal in Kochi was also incorporated. So all the buildings were built using the silt and waste that is dredged out of the canal. Thereby, the building itself is a sustainable and a community engaged project, or a building that is built by the community through their engagement. Here's another one example of waste being used in creating creative, in studios, design studios within Panampally Nagar in Kochi. Again, we've heard about the kind of things that came out of the canal, which could be recycled and upcycled, which was incredible, and how they've been dumped into the canal, which is then clogged and create an environmental issue. The other area that we looked at is the cultural identity of communities, and how different community who lives in different part of the cities that we looked at. This, for example, in Calicut, like how different parts of the Calicut is occupied by historic communities, which has got very distinct cultural identity. Some of these communities were severed by large-scale infrastructure projects like the railways, the large road building, and so on and so forth. And their historic ties have been slowly melted away. Is there a way in which you can build those community relationships back and celebrate their identity, whether that is through their cuisine or their literature, or through their artistic endeavors such as paintings and other things, and create again smaller platforms for them to kind of to retain that identity and retain that traditions in those communities, and then that takes off. So when you have a product to sell, there would be buyers. You can't just expect these things to just be done just by marketing and media coverage alone. You have to have the content, and the content is the people and their kind of heritage, and that need to be kind of given an atmosphere to grow and prosper in those communities. So this is in Kutichira, this students' work, and one of the things that they were talking about is to kind of create a green loop around Calicut, which can become the cycling and walking route. And with every, as it crosses from one community to the other, there is to be small hubs and pavilions which celebrates certain aspects of that community, whether that is the cuisine that they celebrate, or the literature, or library, or reading, or encourage reading habits, and so on and so forth. And that build up the human resources that is necessary to retain or to kind of create the kind of the backbones of a creative industry. This student in particular looked at the kind of large literature bases that Calicut has, whether that is S.K. Puttacard, Mohammad Bashir, MP P. Valsala, and so on and so forth, and how that has translated into a different industry, such as movie making. Like, we've got very well-known movie makers like I.V. Shashi, Hariharan, Joy Matthew, and my own classmate, Pramod Ranjan, Anjali Menon, and so on and so forth. So there is a connection here, and yet movie making is not so visible. So one of the proposals that the student developed was that the redundant factory, the compressed factory, can be converted into a media and movie pre-production and post-production center. So there's a very specific thing that she's saying, a pre-production where there is an environment to kind of create infrastructure for movie makers to come together and create an association. And then once the movie is made, like wherever they are shot, you come back here for the post-production, where you have all the kind of recording studios and editing suites and so on and so forth. And it's very adaptable, and it also then retain the heritage that is falling apart in pretty bad way in Calicut. The student looked at the same compressed building, and she was really keen on looking at the weaving tradition that we have, the kind of Salia community, which were doing all these weaving, and how they kind of was dotted around the city and slowly disappeared because of lack of opportunity, because of lack of financial incentives, and so on. So how do you kind of bring back that, and the name Calicut or Calico, which came from Calico, can be kind of somehow do justice to it again? So bring back that that industry back into its one of the kind of iconic place in Mananchira, and create hubs for smaller weaving association and handloom workers to come and work within their environment. So the big industrial part of the compress disappeared, but it become like a collaborative one where the kind of small scale cottage industry as well as some sort of mechanized production can be done to create bespoke kind of fabrics and other things. This is a factory once supplied Marks and Spencers and Air India seats at one age, and you can still go and see the swatches of them in the derelict building, which is incredibly painful to see. So there is a lot of heritage here. Whoever is saying that it's not there, I would say that it's not true. You just need to identify it, and you just need to kind of celebrate, and you just need to kind of create a support mechanism for that to flourish. And one of the last or second last set of slides that I want to show you, this student is looking at knowledge economy itself in terms of like how many schools and colleges and libraries and other infrastructure that is in Calicut, and how much of the economy is dependent on the Middle East remittance at the moment, and how you can essentially create a network of support mechanism by linking all these colleges and industry and their labs to promote. So you don't really have to kind of build a lot of science park and industrial park or business parks, because much of these labs are staying redundant in NID Calicut and other institutions. Why not use them at the time when the students are not using it? This is how the universities in UK survive. So you can link up this infrastructure together to kind of create a kind of hidden infrastructure for the creative and other kind of industry to kind of flourish, for prototyping, for experimenting with new products and so on and so forth to happen. And so what the student is proposing is to kind of bring out, create a network. So it's not about kind of creating large buildings and large campuses that some people like, but you don't have to have that. You have, in this day and age, you don't really need to have people next to each other in one campus. You can be linked with high-speed internet and so on and so forth. So people can be in a derelict warehouse in the beach and connected to NID campus or IIM campus and collaborate. And in that way, you can begin to kind of create a hidden network of support mechanism in Calicut, and all to be coordinated by a center in Mananchira, and again reusing some of the derelict building with retrofit fab labs and other kind of prototyping facilities, which anybody can sign up and use with a very small fee or whatever, so that the whole system becomes self-reliant and it doesn't have to have a lot of kind of external funding. We've looked at many different cities in South along the coast now, from Mangalore to Kochi to Calicut, and one of the common pattern that we are seeing is that all the industrial push, all the kind of population growth is pushing the growth towards the edges and outwards. And this is going to create a huge amount of, mobility issues and the disparity that results from the one who has the mobility and who doesn't have the mobility. And therefore, the kind of things that people can access and participate in economic activity become limited. So there's a need to kind of remodel and be creative in the way that we are planning our cities. We cannot continue to live and spread into ecologically sensitive areas. So you can begin to see how the heat map of how cities are spreading. The last two images there on the right hand side shows the population growth as well as the kind of denser development patterns that is happening. And again, in Kochi, the earlier slide that I showed how the hotspot was almost outside Kochi's historic center. So there's a real need to kind of promote more creative ways of planning the city. So again, we're looking at infrastructure that would promote things like a city that would be more walkable, more sociable, this student in particular is looking at a creative way of not kind of spreading the population outwards, but in terms of actually creating high quality infrastructure in the city center, which would then allow population to move back into the city center, where you can have a higher tax base, which can then invest in better quality infrastructure. Calicut is quite blessed with some really creative people, including our own mayor, who has some really creative ideas about how urban mobility can be achieved in a more sustainable and appropriate way for a place like Calicut. So this student got inspired by the discussion that we had in Calicut with mayor and so on and so forth in developing this proposal. This is another student who was working in Kochi, looking at biodiversity. Again, something that we should be celebrating, which is essentially the kind of backbone of our tourism sector, but constantly being destroyed. So this student went on to model the biodiversity in Kochi and how the interdependency of different species to each other, and what are the kind of critical green spaces and wetlands that need very sensitive conservation, and how that can be supported by the kind of available institutions around that site that he has chosen, and then developing a whole proposal around that. And finally, last one, which is Barney, who's looking at the kind of larger issue of climate change, and how every civilization, every kind of large cities around the world is dependent on ocean, and it's ocean for its economy, its livelihood, its climate, and so on and so forth, and how we are kind of not doing the right things to kind of protect our oceans. And he's predicting that there would be kind of sea level rise, and with that, there's a certain area of Calicut would go under the water. So there are certain parts of the city which could be denser, which could be protected using, natural reefs and other things that can be seeded with a new kind of pier that would begin to seed the kind of shallow banks of shores of Calicut which could bring a natural protection to Calicut rather than building all these kind of large seawalls, and then using that kind of shallow water for sustainable fishing. So again, these are the kind of creative proposals that we've been developing within the studio. We write all these up as a research output. We exhibit our work in the cities. This is the video that you're seeing is in last year's exhibition in Calicut, and this year from 28th to 30th of June, we'll be in Lalita Academy Gallery in Calicut, just behind Town Hall. So if anybody is in Calicut around that time, please come and visit us to see more about it or to talk about it. I think I'll leave it there and let others to have their voice on this.
Thank you, Dr. Shibu. I think their work is exemplary good, because we have seen people from Europe, all part of the world, coming and studying Calicut, and of course cities of Kerala. And of course these proposals need to be taken to the next level, to what level we can take it to the benefit of the city. Now, due to lack of time, I'm just moving to the next panelist, Dr. Ajit. Now, Dr. Ajit does not require any introduction. I should really appreciate him, because the very fact of all those things what we are discussing today, the very fact of this dialogue is happening, the very fact of why Calicut City is into the Creative Cities Network is all because of one single man, Dr. Ajit Kalyat, who selflessly, I should really appreciate him, because there's no agenda involved, because all of us, if you take me or most of the people here, there's always some element of agenda, that there's a personalization required, there's some kind of recognition required. But this man always does it without any, he doesn't need to be distinguished or recognized in a group, That's something which is very strange. So I really appreciate him for what reason, why? He was the first one who presented this concept of idea of not just Calicut as a Creative Cities Network, he as a part of UNESCO. He started this concept for all 7 corporations of Kerala. Okay, So I wish him to speak a little bit on the potentials of cities of Kerala, especially all the 6 or 7 corporations, and how we can enhance what are the potentials of such cities and how we can take it to the next level. What are the progress which already been achieved? He's also behind the UNESCO Learning City of Thrissur. He's working on Trivandrum. So I just want to speak a little bit on it and what is the progress of action and how we can take it to the next level. Over to you, Dr. Ajit.
Thank you, Dr. Firoz, for your very, very kind words. Honorable Mayor, Sadish Sir, Shibu, and Professor Joyson and Graham Hitchen, who spoke earlier. It's very interesting that the idea of creativity is getting deliberated with such kind of a speakers who have spent years behind that in studying and applying this thinking into various spatial contexts. The reason why we started looking at this as an opportunity, primarily because KILA as a state nodal agency has the responsibility of training the local governments, capacity development of the local governments across Kerala. And the urban center at KILA was fairly new. And the urban center was trying to establish its relevance within the KILA ecosystem as well as within the state and also across the country to be seen and to be known as a center which produces original thinking that can be deployed to improve our training, that can be used for handholding the local governments so that it's not just unidirectional flow of information to the local government, that something which we learn from different contexts and from some books is just communicated to them. But rather there is a two-way relationship between an organic relationship between the KILA as well as the local government, which was the kind of mandate given to me by my Director General, Dr. Joy Lemon, who was supposed to be here today, but due to other commitments, he had to excuse. So this ask, how can we position KILA's center as a leading center which can contribute to innovative thinking within the urban local governments? That triggered a lot of discussions internally, and also, of course, we are in a connected ecosystem with the mayors and chairpersons across the state. So we keep getting opportunity to meet, interact, and ask some stupid questions sometime, also to kind of get their feedback on things which we are doing. So this opportunity to be in regular contact with the elected representative and some of the visionaries like Mayor of Kozhikode. And I must say, while I say this, I must also say all the 6 mayors with we are currently working all have been exceptionally supportive of what we have been trying to do in Kerala. So we started our first engagement with Thrissur. The Mayor of Thrissur was approached seeking whether we could look at Thrissur as a city of learning. And our very basic logic was that there are a lot of higher education institutions located within a smaller area, and the city benefits out of their coexistence. But for some reason, they have been stagnated. It was only people coming in, securing some qualifications, and then going out to new institutions or to other states, but not really co-producing something which is of higher order. So this was thought-provoking. How can a city which is so rich in its cultural capital, Thrissur being the cultural capital of Kerala, a lot of arts and cultural institutions are here. The Kerala Sangeet Nadaka Academy, the Kerala Sahitya Academy, Lalit Kala Academy, then Thrissur School of Drama, all are existed within a smaller area. Many higher education institutions, leading higher education institutions existed within the city also. So this compelled us to look at what's missing. So we realized they all work like individual, independent institutions, not really engaging with each other intellectually, culturally, functionally, professionally, and also there is no cementing. So how we could convert this into an ecosystem was what we started looking at. That's how the idea of a city of learning appeared to us, and we started working towards that. And with a lot of encouragement, support, and collaborative mindset from the Honorable Mayor of Thrissur as well as his council, we managed to do a detailed study, which my colleagues at the School of Planning and Architecture, Thrissur, Government Engineering College, Thrissur did, Professor Bindu and our team did. And we then made this converted this into an application to UNESCO cities, global network of learning cities. And as Mayor mentioned earlier, Sadish sir's involvement was very critical here. Mr. Sadish Namboodiripad was very helpful in knowing what kind of requirements will be there from Government of India in terms of documentation. He helped us, advised us, and all those kind of things. It helped us in moving forward and securing that title in a year's time, which opened a lot of excitement within Kila and also across other cities and mayors. And we were parallelly working with the Thiruvananthapuram to position it as a city of peace. The logic was derived from the increasing number of instances, conflicts, unrest, and also various kind of crimes getting reported in the state capital. And we started thinking, why do we constantly think that this is a deteriorating space? How can we prevent this urban decay? How can we kind of position it as a positive opportunity? Because it's, there are a lot of people who are coming and settling in that city. So the lack of familiarity and also, also not having adequate people to support each other in their growth, all might be contributing to this kind of situation. Plus, being the political capital, obviously, it calls for a lot of demonstrations, expressions of, acts of dissent. So we started looking at Thiruvananthapuram as a city of peace. And our intention was to kind of convert the existing narrative that it is a city which is always witnessing, experiencing conflicts, crime, and other kind of thing. We wanted to turn it around, and the Honorable Mayor of Thiruvananthapuram agreed to kind of take this through a council, and the council passed a resolution that by 2030 they will work to make Thiruvananthapuram a city of peace. So this again, the small events where we started building this thinking narrative, and then also very positive and encouraging response from the mayors. Both the mayors was quite significant in building our confidence, also in bringing a lot of clarity to our future directions. And we then, our director wrote to the Honorable Mayor of Kozhikode, requesting the possibility of Kozhikode being considered as a city of literature. And very basic understanding, again, I must confess that we were only looking at few events, including the Kerala Literature Festival happening at Kozhikode, and some of the leading authors like Sri MT living in Kozhikode. Beyond that, it was an educational process for me and also many of us who contributed to this, because we realized that there's so much of literary heritage and wealth and also culture existed in the city, and it still remains vibrant. So in the process, we learned many new things, and that made both Kila as well as all those who work together, including Firoz's team and Dr. Anil Roy from CEPT, and who's probably here on the platform, and Irene, and all of us, learn a lot of new things on how can we use these unique place-specific opportunities, because there are also clusters of publishing houses, clusters of libraries, clusters of various institutions within the city, which through Dr. Firoz as well as Irene's work, we mapped out. So it's not across the city the same kind of system exists. There are spatial affiliations, there are biases, there are certain patterns which are normally invisible to our eyes. But if we deepen our kind of study, then we are able to see these patterns, and that's important for weaving a new economy and the possibilities of tourism, literary circuit, the possibility of a museum, the possibility of reviving the Kolaya culture in Kozhikode, all those things started coming out of these deliberations. And as I said, as an outcome of all this collective effort, without any specific beneficial interest for any one of us, we collaborated, and I think the returns were so exciting. Kozhikode became the first city of literature in India, and so we are continuing the process now. It's not just about getting a title as a city of literature or city of learning or city of peace, but what we are aiming is to kind of create a multi-institutional partnership. Our intention is to kind of facilitate a process of both internal transformation within these organizations of local governments, so that they slowly start appreciating the real wealth, the cultural and societal wealth within these cities, and tap them instead of always seeing people, society, practices, and habits and cultural tenets as barriers to growth, and then always trying to import something which is alien. So we are trying to kind of transform these institutions as very vibrant. And as Honorable Mayor mentioned briefly, the possibility of even shifting this into creatively bureaucratic institutions rather than just compelling them to live as stagnant local government institution, which people are least interested to engage. So how do we open up the minds within the local governments is the challenge that we are working. So this is part of our own capacity development also within Kila. So the next set of efforts that we are, as Feroz mentioned, we are also looking at other cities such as Kochi, where the idea of mainstreaming design, because Kochi is the city which is highly commercialized, a commercial capital of Kerala. It is also the city which has a very strong shipbuilding industry, and also design economy is quite deep and diverse in Kochi. So we are looking at the possibility of a city which could offer a space for constructing or building a ship like INS Vikrant, which can host about 30,000 people. It's a floating township. What kind of learning we can take to the mainland mother city? If that kind of a knowledge exists, can we use that for improving Kochi's livability? Can we use that for strengthening Kochi's aesthetic appeal? Can we use it to improve Kochi's functionality? All these kind of questions are constantly kind of being deliberated under the leadership of the Honorable Mayor of Kochi. And we are also looking at Kannur as a city of folk arts and craft. I'm sure those who know Kannur would certainly will engage immediately on this conversation, whether it is Kalaripayattu or related to handlooms, hand weaving, or Theyyam, and all those areas. There's a lot of craft industry in and around Kannur. So there's a strong possibility of Kannur getting recognized in that manner, and that obviously generates a lot of new kind of economy rather than just having the standard economic practices across all the cities. And Kollam, which is a 6th corporation, is again a smaller corporation like Kannur, 55 wards. We are looking at mainstreaming the idea of biodiversity in Kollam, because the government of Kerala, for promoting tourism, has imagined a biodiversity tourism circuit around Kollam with 2 Ramsar sites. There's abundance of biodiversity around Kollam Corporation. So the mayor of Kollam has kind of subscribed to the idea of developing these assets and also mainstreaming that through possibly green skills and mainstreaming green economy in the city. So these are some of the pathways we are currently exploring within Kerala cities, but we are not really limited to that. We are also exploring the possibility of wellness as a theme. We are also looking at kind of mainstreaming play. We are kind of excited about the possibility of mainstreaming entrepreneurship. So there are different themes around which we are still deliberating and trying to develop some thinking, and also translate this into the thinking as well as practices within the local governments across the state. We are seized with certain challenges which urbanization has brought into our forefront. One, as a small state, landlocked, and also, at a higher accelerated rate of urbanization, there's a lot of challenges which the society is experiencing, and play deficit is one serious issue, because it's not just about children, it's also about middle-aged, it's also about elderly. Play is one of the most important opportunity that a person can have to remain both physically as well as mentally healthy and vibrant. And as a rapidly urbanizing society, we are seeing the elimination of a lot of such opportunity, both in terms of public spaces, parks and playgrounds, but also people not having adequate time for engaging and participating in such activity, which is a result of which we are afraid is going to contribute to some kind of a serious issue, because loneliness being touted as the next pandemic, it is important that we create enough opportunity for people to come and spend in public spaces, in institutions, collaborate as many time as possible within our city environments. If that kind of an opportunity cannot be created, while we become 93%, we will become an urban society which is so full of distress. And we want to safeguard the society. We want to do everything possible to ensure that Kerala evolves as a very livable urban society. And all that we are trying to do is to kind of mainstream opportunities for more fun, opportunities for more food, opportunities for more music, opportunities for more literature, reading and theaters, as well as folk arts and crafts. And maybe we also have an opportunity to kind of institutionalize all these opportunities across our cities. So absolutely opportune time, because we are moving from 47.7% to what we are told is about 93% urban. And it's important that we collectively create a shared thinking that helps us to mainstream creativity in planning, in local governance, and also we are able to kind of attract investments from people who love to contribute to these kind of areas. So we also want to co-opt the business community into our thinking and purpose of mainstreaming creativity in the society. So I think the learning and the success that we managed to secure through the visionary leadership of the Honorable Mayor of Kozhikode, we are hopeful of continuing this. We are hopeful of mainstreaming similar opportunities in other cities. I'll stop here. Thank you once again, Feroz, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit. I think it was insightful, and let's all pray that your effort in moving this ahead for the rest of the cities of Kerala. And of course, a personal note, we should actually in the 2025, Calicut should also aim for the city of UNESCO tag for food. It's my personal note, because similar to literature, Calicut do have high potential to be recognized, which Mayor also told in the beginning when she was speaking, that Calicut, possibly for the common man, more than literature, food is more prominent than what is meant for Calicut. Anyway, this all to be taken as a decision at the next level. I think we will open up very few questions, because already we are running out of time. So I think one question Professor Satish Namboodiripad has asked to Dr. Ajit. Sir, over to you. You can please ask, and after that we'll take one more question and then we'll stop.
Professor, it's only by way of a general knowledge kind of a thing. You were mentioning about biodiversity, peace, etc. as tag for certain what do you call corporations, but they don't currently form part of the UNESCO's tagging. So what is the way out? Currently whatever the UNESCO website etc. talks about, only seven particular topics. No, so biodiversity, peace etc. don't come under that. Just want to know that. That's it.
Sure, sir. Thank you. So obviously we were only trying to mainstream the specific word I would like to use is place-based economic opportunities. It's not always related to UNESCO creative cities. Wherever we had the opportunity of mainstreaming the existing patterns which was Latin. For example, Kannur, it's folk art and craft. Kozhikode, it's literature. We tried to, but Kollam, we didn't find anything that closely associated. The only thing where there is a government policy and government recognition was biodiversity. So we looked at existing international model and we realized that biodiversity is an opportunity, and it can open up it can actually contribute a lot to the new global debates and national debates on green economy, green skilling and all. So we try to do that. But also to inform you that there is another international agency called IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. IUCN actually endorses biodiversity program. So there is a biodiversity program through other agency. City of Peace, two responses. One, it is not originally part of the Creative Cities Network, but UNESCO itself is mainstreaming and promoting that through various other networks. So the UNESCO Institute based in Delhi is one of the partner institutions for this Thiruvananthapuram initiative. And we are also hopeful that this can also attract some support from the SDG 16 hub, which is established by UNESCO to kind of bring cities around the world mainstreaming peace into their planning and governance agenda. The Honorable Mayor also has this time, Mayor, hope I can share this brief information. Sadish sir, in response to your question, so the Honorable Mayor had an opportunity to give a response to the manifesto of the Creative Cities Network, the draft manifesto. So Mayor has also suggested bringing peace into that agenda. We don't know whether it will get considered, but Mayor has also kind of recommended that because creativity also has a role in building a peaceful and just society. So it could be taken up. We don't know, but hopefully this gives some clarity.
I noted. That's all. Thank you.
There is a question from Abdul Nazir. Small scale industries, especially cashew, is not an identifier for Kollam.
Yeah, cashew. Kollam used to be known for its cashew industries, but there's no such thing which we directly can. We as we said, it's not just branding, but also you need to see in the process. What we managed to do is to get a lot of, first of all, the mayor and council as well as the institution within the city to come together and start collaborating. So you need a powerful idea for many people who are normally not talking and conversing and engaging to come together and start collaborating. So that's how ideas such as biodiversity was looked at. We can certainly see what other options are available also. I can only respond to this much at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a comment from one Mr. Nandan. It's an engagement and insightful discussion. I'm not reading it. Thank you for your comment. I think due to lack of time, we'll not be taking any more questions because already we are 15 minutes late. Anyone who want to talk to or engage with the panelists or the speakers, I have shared my email ID to the chat. So please write to me. I will connect you for further deliberations on the topic. Over to you, Arabi.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. I can still see Dr. Shibu Raman's hand up. So is it something that
over to you, Dr. Shibu. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just responding to something that Satish has raised, mainly about biodiversity. Okay, it may not be tagged under UNESCO or whatever, but biodiversity has got a very important role in mental health and in quality of life of people. There is a direct correlation between natural environment and how it affects mental health. There's a lot of studies on this. And it's really important that the cities begin. I mean, why do we go for tours? Why do we go to hill stations and stuff? This is because of that kind of reason. So there is, and if you protect your biodiversity, the economy part would come from it, whether that is through tourism or whether that is through health benefit. Therefore, you reduce your health budget. And so on and so forth. So that it should be something that should be considered in a long-term vision rather than like what can we make money tomorrow kind of thing. Because cities are a huge thing which kind of evolves and develop over a long period of time. Sorry.
It was not about the importance or the relevance of the concept. It was only limited to the only issue whether, if you're going to UNESCO, will they agree it? Because whether it is part of that is the only point. One does not, questioning the importance of relevance of peace or biodiversity. So they have, it's a structured kind of a thing. There are 7 areas. These 2 don't fall into that. Then why are you going on under for UNESCO? That was a limited point, not into the merit of the case at all. That's it. Thank you. Sorry, anyway, thank you. Points raised by Professor, Shibu Raman is, they don't need any, there is no scope for, nobody will even debate on that point. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, over to you, Arabi.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Feroze and the panelists for your thoughtful input. It was a great session that uncovered various aspects of creative economies and cities. Due to the time constraints, we couldn't continue with further questions. Please kindly excuse us. So now we are approaching the end of the session. I kindly request Irene Antony, Research Fellow, KILA, to conclude the session and deliver the vote of thanks.
Hello, good evening. So Mayor had to leave for another meeting that's happening just now. So, I distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, discussants, and participants. As we conclude today's session of Kerala Urban Dialogues, I am honored to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of 3 institutions that are very dear to me. The Kerala Institute of Local Administration, National Institute of Technology, Calicut, and Kozhikode Municipal Corporation. First and foremost, I extend our deepest gratitude to our chair, Dr. Beena Philip, Mayor of Kozhikode, for your leadership and insights that has been valuable in setting the context for today's discussion. Thank you, ma'am. And heartfelt thanks to our keynote speaker, Professor Graham Hitchen, for opening today's discussion with his work around creative industries mapping of Indian cities. It really helped us understand, the sectoral composition of our creative industries, and the scale and complexity of the creative industries of our Indian cities, its opportunities and also challenges related to the lack of information. Thank you, sir. And also sincere thanks to our second keynote speaker, Professor Joy Sen, for presenting the different cases of creative resurgence from around the world, highlighting the importance of ecosystem-led, culture-led, and community-led urban regeneration. To our discussants, Sri Satish Namboodiripad, IIS. Thank you, sir, for sharing your ideas on ways to make the creative industries of our cities more economically viable, creating opportunities that are interesting enough for our youth. And our discussant, Professor Shibu Raman, sir. Thanks to sir for presenting his exemplary work and his students, that highlighted the importance of strengthening socio-cultural identity and building human resources to create creative industries that are sustainable. Thank you, sir. And thanks to Dr. Ajit Kalayat, Urban Chair Professor at KILA, for sharing your experience and KILA's work identifying the creative cities of Kerala and augmenting their visibility globally. Thank you, sir. And special thanks to Feroze, sir, for moderating the discussion so very skillfully and also sharing your experience, being deeply involved in the topic of creative cities. Thank you, sir. And also thanks to Arabi for coordinating everything from NIT's end. Thank you, Arabi. And to our audience who have joined us today, thank you very much for your engagement and enthusiasm. And to conclude the session, for me, I think what stood out so loudly for me is from the 11th session of the Urban Dialogues is that creative economy mapping is our way ahead to understand our cultural and creative industries better, its scale, composition, and the opportunities related to it. And I'm very hopeful after today's session to learn that we have enough information and support to drive creative resurgence in Kozhikode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Irene, for the summary and extending our gratitude to the speakers, panelists, audiences. Once again, thank you. I think that's the conclusion of the session. Sir, anything to add on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That ends the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Shibu.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.